Presbyter of God's tribe made his move. Presbyter of God's tribe made his move. The entire arena suddenly quieted down. Everyone's eyes were focused on Presbyter of God's tribe. Grand Court looked at the great clan elder with a calm gaze and made an inviting gesture with his hand, saying, "Please." Presbyter of God's tribe's lips drew back into a smile. "Grand Court is truly amazing. With this godlike crafting method of yours, I can give you another chance to choose again. One man against thousands of people. These thousands of people were all artificers at the peak of universal realm, but they were all defeated by him. In other words, the Grand Court alone was worth as much as the artificers of the entire universal realm. He was sufficient in the God's tribe. This kind of talent should be controlled by the God's tribe. If he couldn't control it. Without waiting for Grand Court to speak, he seriously spoke again. "Don't be in a hurry to answer, you better think about it carefully." Grand Court slightly said, "There is no need to think about it, Elder, please." A gesture of invitation. That was the answer. Presbyter of God's tribe squinted and sneered, "There is only one path. Since you have chosen a path of death, then prepare to go to hell." As soon as he finished speaking, the refining fire on Presbyter of God's tribe's body instantly ignited. Boom. It was dozens of feet tall and had a unique elemental energy. The power of the God's tribe. It's the power of the God's tribe. What a powerful refining fire. I have never seen such a powerful refining fire, as if it could melt the entire world. The God's tribe blood vein is just different. All kinds of praises and praises could be heard. Although it was somewhat exaggerated, but his refining fire was indeed powerful, and with the power of the God's tribe added on, it made his refining fire even sharper, as though it carried the majesty of a God's tribe. Under the Presbyter of God's tribe's refining fire, the refining fire that the Grand Court had released seemed to be constantly shrinking, as if it was afraid. Presbyter of God's tribe laughed coldly and said, "Let's begin." Boom. Refining fire whizzed out, instantly raising the temperature of the fire to its highest point. Then, with a flip of his right hand, a purplish gold hammer appeared. Purple Sky Hammer. It's the top-grade holy artifact in the forging hammer. Wow. It should be a legendary divine object. The holy artifact with the highest level of artifact forging actually appeared. God's tribe is powerful. Rumor has it that the things that are forged with the purple heaven hammer are all holy artifact. Not only that, it can also release a threatening aura of artifact forging with a powerful attack. He is a hammer refiner, and also a weapon. Just as everyone was discussing. Boom. The purple skyforging hammer landed. Rumble. Flames flew in all directions as a refining force swept out. Grand Court reacted extremely quickly as he grabbed a piece of deep-sea mysterious iron to protect himself. The moment the force attacked, the dark steel instantly shattered. Grand Court was forced back a few steps. His internal organs were all churning, blood was stinging at the nose, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Senior brother. Grand Court. Many disciples of God's design attic stepped forward. Grand Court said solemnly, "I'm fine. I underestimated the power of the Presbyter of God's tribe. I never thought that the purple heaven hammer would be able to release such a powerful refining force." Presbyter of God's tribe laughed disdainfully. "Grand Court, where is your divine speed refining technique? Why didn't you use it?" Before he could finish his words, the purple sky hammer moved again. Rumble. Another extremely strong refining force burst out. He rushed towards the Grand Court. Grand Court frowned, "We can't defend against it." "Then let's fight." The refining hammer in his hand moved, and the refining fire on his body released a demon beast's roar, immediately combusting. Rumble. His body felt like it was possessed by a wild beast. The crafting style had also suddenly and drastically changed. From the rapid crafting at the beginning to the incomparable mania, it was as if a calligrapher was writing wild grass. He was uninhibited and unrestrained. At this moment. This was the case for Grand Court. The refining force on his body surged, and in the face of the refining force released by the Presbyter of God's tribe, he also smashed down with his hammer. A sweep. Buzz. An ear-piercing buzzing sound could be heard. It was like a flood dragon out at sea, rampaging about. The two weapons' crafting energies collided. Buzz. A dull humming sound rang out as rings after rings collided before heavily overlapping each other. Presbyter of God's tribe's gaze turned cold, and his heart fiercely snorted, "Let me see how long you can hold out for." Boom. The purple sky-forging hammer fell. The refining force swept over with the might of a God's tribe. An even stronger force charged forward. The space between Grand Court's eyebrows tightened as the aura around his body surged. The hammer in his hand also smashed down fiercely. With a roar, the lightning struck. Rumble. They collided once again. Overlapping his strength, he crazily twisted. Space itself began to crack. The surrounding people were all stunned. They were all scared silly. When had they ever seen a refining competition like this? Too strong. The kind that was strong enough to explode. Long Fei looked at Grand Court from the window, and was secretly shocked in his heart. He's really strong. If he wasn't injured, Presbyter of God's tribe would not have been his match. But Zhong Xian frowned. Long Fei looked at the white brows in the room. Xiao Bai was shocked. Grand Court is so strong, he can't even hold on for much longer. He single-handedly crushed thousands of people. Right now, not even the Presbyter of God's tribe can withstand it. To have reached this level of refining, it truly surpasses one's imagination. Ever since God's Design Attic was founded, she has always been at the forefront of the refining world. Senior Mie said, "Grand Court is indeed strong, but God's tribe will not allow himself to lose." Elder Swordsman was stunned. Rumble. The purple heavenly hammer was knocked down once again. Presbyter of God's tribe's face was pale. Cold sweat rolled down his forehead like rain. His expression was pained. He was on the verge of collapsing. But how could God's tribe lose? He couldn't lose even one match. Out of the corner of his eyes, not far behind him, the chi of a presbyter of God's tribe suddenly stirred. Elder Swordsman said in a hoarse voice, "Small." The words had not left his mouth yet. The power of the yin wind struck right at Grand Court's chest. Fart. He spat out a mouthful of black blood. His chest had been pierced through, and there was a hole the size of a fist in it. At this moment, the purple sky hammer in the hands of the artifact-forging presbyter of God's tribe once again heavily smashed down. "Go and die." Grand Court's face turned as pale as thin paper. Seeing the incoming energy, he didn't retreat a single step. The hammer in his hand smashed down heavily. Bang, bang, bang. He did not release the refining force, but continued to refine weapons. When that powerful force reached his body, the Grand Court smiled and said, "Okay." Boom. Power exploded out from his body, causing his body to slowly crack apart. Grand Court stood there motionlessly. Grand Court stood there motionlessly. There was a smile on his face. His body started to crack bit by bit, and light was emitted from the crack. Long Fei looked at the wound on his head, and sighed, "Ari." It was also at this time. When Presbyter of God's tribe's hammer fell, the material under his hammer shattered into pieces, and the artifact forging failed. Grand Court smiled faintly and said, "You've lost." Presbyter of God's tribe's gaze turned sinister as he looked at the piece of trash underneath the hammer. He shouted, "You dog, so what if you win?" Boom. A heavy hammer smashed down. Bam. Yet another extremely strong refining force was released. In itself, Grand Court was already at the end of his wits and was about to die. The presbyter of God's tribe did not let him off, he just smashed down with his hammer. Was to not give the Grand Court any chance of survival. It had always been the God's tribe that bullied people. No one had ever dared to win against the God's tribe. Presbyter of God's tribe laughed coldly, looked at Grand Court and said, "Go to hell." If this strike were to strike again, Grand Court would definitely die. In front of the God's tribe, who dared to block this power? God's Design Attic was a group of artificers, they simply did not have the strength to resist it. Thus, in the eyes of Presbyter of God's tribe, Grand Court was already a dead man. However, the air moved slightly, and like a cool breeze blowing, a series of spatial ripples faintly appeared in front of Presbyter of God's tribe. Next. Buzz. The power released by the hammer of refinement was completely absorbed by a special spatial fluctuation. Gone. All his strength vanished. Long Fei was shocked. The power of spatial displacement. That's not right. Divine power. Long Fei's pupils tightened. The system had changed, but his blood veins' power had not changed at all. His blood could still release the power of spatial displacement. He didn't have much control over the power of space. But he was 100% sure that the force just now was the shift in space. Shifting his strength to another world, this move. Too awesome. It was Long Fei's first time seeing someone who could release the power of space to such a level. Everyone was stunned. Presbyter of God's tribe was also startled, but at the moment his anger was burning, he did not think too much, and the purple sky hammer moved again, smashing down fiercely. Buzz. A purple refining force. Moreover, this move had the power of a stronger God's tribe. Presbyter of God's tribe bellowed, "You dog, go to hell." Rumble. Purple energy flames surged out, like a wave shooting out. The refining platform was torn into pieces, and sand and rocks flew everywhere. It was hard to open one's eyes. Presbyter of God's tribe stared deadly at him. Grand Court laughed bitterly. He couldn't stop it. Right now, his internal organs were all rupturing and his body was cracking. Not to mention this kind of power, any kind of power could take his life. But yet another spatial ripple. Buzz. It was like a cool breeze blowing past. Then, all the energy in the presbyter of God's tribe disappeared. It was like a gale that suddenly stopped and became calm. Presbyter of God's tribe's eyes darkened. Just as he was about to make his move again, a presbyter of God's tribe walked out and said with a deep voice, "The power of space in the Mu clan is able to easily transfer its power to another world." Presumably, the person who came here would be the current patriarch of the Mu clan, Murong Xiong, right? As soon as he finished, the expressions of the surrounding people secretly changed. Murong Xiong? The great tyrant from the Xiao Yarrow city? The monster? That monster? The people from Mu clan are here too? The Mu clan was the ancient family. It was also the family of the ancient world. His name shook the entire universal realm. It was also one of the most mysterious families. The people of Universal Realm all knew about the Xiao Yarrow city, but no one knew the exact location of the Xiao Yarrow city. Some people said that it was in the sky, some people said that it was underground, and some people said that it was in the ocean. No one could pinpoint his location correctly. This was also the reason why God's tribe had always been helpless against Xiao Yarrow city. It was because of the power of space. The inheritance power of the ancient world s ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. As the space shifted, Murong Xiong walked out of the spatial space with a slight smile. "I didn't expect that the lofty presbyter of God's tribe would actually know about me, Murong Xiong." When the elder refining saw Murong Xiong walking out, he immediately shouted and said, "Murong Xiong, do you dare to interfere in the matters of the God's tribe?" Murong Xiong looked at him coldly, and said, "TCH, so what if you're God's tribe? When my Mu clan was born, I didn't even know what kind of dog was hiding inside. You dare insult God's tribe? I think you're sick of living." Elder Refining replied heavily. It was just that. Not waiting for him to finish. The air behind him suddenly turned black, and chaotic law of space struck out. Murong Xiong lightly tapped it with his finger. Buzz. The dark space immediately swallowed the Elder Refining, leaving only his head outside. Murong Xiong laughed. "What did you say just now? What's wrong with me?" It was just a head at God's design attic and the rest of the bodies were all in another space. Everyone panicked and their faces turned pale. The scene was somewhat panicked. But, even so, the two veiled ancient strong did not move. They were like two wooden logs, not caring about the life and death of presbyter of God's tribe at all. This made Murong Xiong's heart sink even more. "You aren't even making a move. Damn, where did these two monsters come from?" When Elder Refining saw that half of his body was gone, he was so scared that sweat started to appear on his forehead. Like a spring, he anxiously said, "I was wrong. I was wrong. Murong Xiong, please let me go. I won't dare to do it again, just take me for a fart. Go ahead." Nothing was more important than his life. The reputation of the God's tribe. Compared to his life, It was just bullsh*t. Murong Xiong ridiculed. Please? Isn't your God's tribe awesome? Begging for forgiveness doesn't seem like your style. Isn't it a bit too lame? Another presbyter of God's tribe said, Murong Xiong, what do you want? Murong Xiong said, I don't want to do anything, I'm just unhappy to see you bullying others. That presbyter of God's tribe said, this is a matter between the God's tribe and himself. If you want to interfere, sure. Then the God's tribe will declare war on the God's design attic. There's no need to compete in artifact forging anymore. What did a full-scale war mean? This meant that the God's design attic was God's tribe's mortal enemy. They would do anything to get rid of him. Murong Xiong's expression did not change. The elder looked at Grand Court and said, Grand Court, do you want to do this? Murong Xiong sneered, to start an all-out war against someone. Do you think I would be afraid of your God's tribe? As soon as he finished, the 18 descendant of God's tribe holding realm extermination spears moved slightly, and directly pointed their spears at him, ready to fire the power of realm of destruction at any time. In other words, if they moved even the slightest bit, the secret world would be completely destroyed. See, there is another chapter to be delivered at night, or tomorrow. God's tribe always wanted to deal with Xiao Yarrow City. God's tribe always wanted to deal with Xiao Yarrow City. Xiao Yarrow City was also known as the Rebel Army. God's tribe's #1 target to be extinguished. Once Grand Court nodded his head and interfered with the matters of the God's design attic, it would also mean that the God's design attic would have to take on the notoriety of being a rebel and be crushed by his full strength. There was no need to think about the consequences. Just like the other sects that were going against the God's tribe, their entire clan of 9 was annihilated. Presbyter of God's tribe stared coldly at the dying Grand Court. The surrounding presbyter of God's tribe, as well as the powerhouse of the various hegemon-level sects, were all looking at Grand Court, waiting for a single word from him. They were prepared to come here. Refining was not something that could be compared to, and when God's tribe gave the order, they would immediately charge into the fray and kill all the people in God's design attic. Facing the God's tribe, facing those overlord sect powerhouse and looking back at the present God's design attic, the Grand Court's heart was very complicated. He didn't know how to choose. His life was already hanging by a thread, on the verge of death. In the entire God's design attic, there was already no one who could fight against God's tribe. Even if they forced presbyter of God's tribe to fight, there were still those 2 motionless ancient strong. The God's design attic would definitely lose the refining competition. Losing meant that he had to listen to the orders of the God's tribe. Whether he died or lived, everything would be decided by the God's tribe. If I stand together with Xiao Yarrow City, I might be able to survive, but what about tomorrow? What about the day after tomorrow? The same as hiding in a tortoise nest in a secret world. This was not what God's design attic wanted. Moreover, it was hard to say whether or not he would be able to live till tomorrow if he were to fall out with the God's tribe. Out of the 18 realm exterminating spears, as long as he could release his power, the secret world would definitely be destroyed. Until now, the universal realm still did not have the power to destroy the realm of destruction. The duel continued, and they lost. However, it was possible for him to save the God's design attic. This possibility was not high, but it was still a possibility. To fall out with the God's tribe? Surviving was extremely difficult. The chances of that happening were even slimmer. The God's design attic was only a place for refining artifact. Grand Court's gaze relaxed slightly. Seeing him loosen his eyes, Murong Xiong already knew what choice he had. Grand Court found it difficult to speak, and he said slowly, City Lord Mu, thank you for your good intentions. This is God's design attic's private matter, let us God's design attic settle it ourselves. Murong Xiong smiled faintly and took a step back. He said unwillingly, Grand Court, it's just an annihilation spear. I'm confident that I can send all of them into a foreign space before they release the power of the annihilation spear. I can protect your God's design attic. It was not a sound transmission, but a voice transmission in front of the presbyter of God's tribe. Presbyter of God's tribe was secretly shocked. If they did not have the extermination spear, they would not be Murong Xiong's match at all, unless the powerhouses from ancient world could take action. However, they had been standing there motionlessly like two Buddha statues, as if they had come here to play. Inside, he was also beating his drum. The presbyter of God's tribe spoke in a deep voice, "Grand Court, you must think this through. Even if you do not have the realm of destruction spear, as long as your God's design attic can become enemies with my God's tribe and avoid today, will you be able to escape tomorrow?" Murong Xiong looked up with a fierce glint in his eyes, and said, "You think I'm afraid of God's tribe?" His voice was filled with a domineering aura. The presbyter of God's tribe's forehead was quickly covered in sweat, and his body was trembling uncontrollably. The Grand Court said, "Many thanks for City Lord Mu's good intentions. This is a matter of the God's design attic, let my God's design attic settle it." He had no choice. He was the Grand Court of the God's design attic. Whatever he decided to do would have to be considered for the God's design attic, for the 100 refiners and disciples of the God's design attic. If the God's design attic was gone, then the universal realm's level of refining would fall by 100 years. Giving yourself to the God's tribe, perhaps it would allow the God's design attic to continue living, presbyter of God's tribe said with a heavy voice. Murong Xiong, did you hear it? Murong Xiong laughed bitterly as he turned around to look at the Grand Court and said, "No one from your God's design attic can compete with me anymore, you won't be able to win. If we lose, the God's tribe will still kill all of your people." Finished. Murong Xiong's silhouette moved, entering the space. A voice came out, "God's tribe, if you guys dare to play any more tricks, see how lousy forces you into the crack amongst the air stewardesses." Humph. Boom. As his voice faded, the space around him trembled. Just now, that elder's body had loosened up and he was so scared that he almost fell to his knees. His face was incomparably pale and he didn't even dare to breathe. The feeling of having half of his body in another space was just too unbearable. Presbyter of God's tribe's gaze turned sinister, he secretly clenched his fists. Murong Xiong. A cold light flashed in his eyes. He felt extremely displeased. However, this time, they were not here to deal with Murong Xiong, but the God's design attic. Seeing that Murong Xiong had disappeared, the presbyter of God's tribe said in a low voice, "Grand Court, let the competition continue. You won just now. Let's continue." While they were talking, another presbyter of God's tribe walked up. A new refining platform appeared and said to the crumbling Grand Court, "Grand Court, please." Grand Court's entire body was cracking. Right now, not to mention artifact forging, it was extremely difficult for him to even move a single finger. But even so, he did not give up. He was still thinking about picking up the hammer. However, clang. The hammer fell to the ground. Grand Court bent down to pick it up. Puff. A huge mouthful of blood seemed to pour out from his mouth. Grand Court. Senior brother. The people of God's design attic stepped forward. The God's tribe refiner's face carried a cold smile, and he said, "You can't even afford to use a hammer, what kind of weapon is this? What a piece of trash." The disciples of the God's design attic all stared at him fiercely. The artificer from the God's tribe laughed. "What? Am I wrong? Isn't your Grand Court a trash? Trash who can't even bring out a hammer?" A God's design attic disciple could not bear listening to him anymore, and said, "Grand Court is severely injured. If he was not severely injured, he could have defeated you with a single hand." The artificer from the God's tribe laughed. "Who told him to be so heavily injured? Don't tell me that if you were to duel with me now, you would be considered trash even if you can't win. Grand Court, whose side is it that I am on? Ha ha ha." Suddenly, boom. The artifact forging flames on his body began to burn. The trash of the God's design attic. Look at this old man. This old man will let you know what artifact forging is. Presbyter of God's tribe moved both his hands, lightning crackling in all directions. Hammer after hammer was hammered down. Bang, 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 bang. It was abnormally fierce. In 5 minutes, a holy artifact was created. The aura of the God's tribe's artificer receded. Looking at the Grand Court on the other side, his face was filled with ridicule as he said, "Grand Court, aren't you too weak? I'm done refining, what about you? Still not moving? Ha ha ha." Truly a piece of trash. Grand Court's gaze tensed up, blood gushing out from the corner of his mouth. The number of blood points on his head became 0. His body had long since exceeded the limits of what he could bear. His body had long since exceeded the limits of what he could bear. Exclusive of 1,000 people. He had used up both his profound chi and his spiritual power. It was all thanks to the power he had released from burning his life force. Even so, he still continued to crush her. However, he had suffered heavy injuries twice. Previously, his body had already severely exceeded the limit when he was fighting against the gods' tribe's artificers. Even the great firmament golden immortal would not be able to save him. He knew it himself. All his life, he had been refining, all his life, he had been fighting for the artifact forging, for the god's design attic. In the end, Grand Court stared angrily at the distance, his body slowly falling down. Grand Court, senior brother, master. As everyone rushed forward, the cracks on Grand Court's body slowly expanded until it was like porcelain, breaking into pieces. Blood flowed all over the ground. The state of death was incomparably miserable, but his eyes were staring hard into the distance. He died with grievance. Master. Woo-woo. Many disciples began to cry bitterly. Grand Court is dead. The artificer on the refining platform loudly laughed. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. It's fine if you don't win, but why did you refine yourself to death? Trash is truly trash. Weak trash. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. The people of God's design attic were crying, while the people of God's tribe were laughing maniacally. God's design attic is only SOSO. I thought he was that strong. That's right, when the presbyter of God's tribe made his move, he immediately refined himself to death. The strongest refiner in the world is in the God's tribe. This is the result of going against the God's tribe. Serves him right. Presbyter of God's tribe is mighty. Presbyter of God's tribe is domineering. Ha ha ha. Many people began to wildly laugh and discuss. Actually, in their hearts, they knew that if Grand Court was not injured, none of the refiners in God's tribe would be his match. What this world focused on was not refining strength, but the strength of one's fists. In the end, the God's design attic was still a place for refining. Refining could not grasp the laws. He couldn't control his own fate. This was reality. This was heaven, the God's tribe's heaven. If you were to go against the heavens, would you have a good ending? The cheers of 10,000 people immediately covered up the crying sounds of the God's design attic. The people of God's design attic all had red eyes and gnashed their teeth as they watched the crazy people laughing. They really wanted to pounce and bite them. What are you looking at? Do you still have a temper? Do you think that you waste martial arts training will make a move? If you have the ability, continue competing. Aren't your God's design attic powerful? Tilda, is this the universal realm's refiner of the ox? Let's continue. Ha ha ha. If he threw himself forward, he would only be sending himself to his death. A few pavilion masters tried their best to control the situation and said heavily, God's design attic has not lost. We haven't lost yet. There were still 8 pavilion masters who had yet to fight. He was also the last person from the God's design attic who did not take part in the battle. Presbyter of God's tribe gave a cold laugh. He pressed his hands together and the entire audience quieted down, and said, however, you guys are about to lose. Continue. Your Grand Court has already been refined to death by me, you useless trash. Hehe, this old man will step on you one by one. Ha ha ha. Boom. While they were talking, the refining fire on the blacksmith's body burned up once again. Staring at one of the pavilion masters, he said, Trash, come. As one of the pavilion masters stepped onto the refining platform, the refining fire on his body instantly ignited as well. At this moment, bam! The God's tribe's refining technique smashed down heavily with a hammer. The refining force moved. It shot out directly. The artificer from God's design attic was directly sent flying. Bang! He landed heavily on the ground, spitting out a mouthful of blood. With a flip of his eyes, his body slowly stiffened. God's tribe wins. Next. The God's tribe refiner laughed out loud. Ha ha ha. He's so weak and yet he dares to come out and make a fool of himself. The trash of God's design attic, all of you go together. This old man will take care of all of you at once. Don't waste my time. Ha ha ha. Extreme arrogance. The remaining 7 artificers from God's design attic looked at each other. Their anger was suppressed. We God's design attic will never win with numbers. I'll do it. A younger pavilion master walked forward, picked up his hammer, and made an inviting gesture. Come. Humph. The artificer from the God's tribe sneered and said, Trash, you dare to sneer and mock the God's tribe? Die. Boom. The hammers moved, refining force burst out. The artificers of the God's design attic also moved, hammering down with heavy force. When the 2 refining force came into contact with each other, it was obvious that his strength was insufficient. Rumble. His body instantly exploded backwards. He didn't even have time to stabilize his body. The God's tribe's artificer hammered down again. Boom. The refining force pierced right through his body, causing the God's design attic's pavilion master to split into 2, his body dropping to the ground, fresh blood flowing everywhere. The faces of everyone from the God's design attic turned pale. 3 pavilion masters had died in a row. The artificer from the God's tribe sneered and said, Not even worth a single blow. Useless. The artificers in the God's tribe were already very strong, and in the entire God's design attic, no one other than the Grand Court and the 2nd pavilion master were a match for him. God's tribe wins, next. God's tribe wins, next. God's tribe wins, next. One by one, they walked forward and lost. If it wasn't serious injuries, then it was a coma. The God's tribe refiner was ruthlessly slapping God's design attic in the face. Every time he won a match, he would laugh at God's design attic loudly. This is God's design attic. The trash pavilion, isn't it too trash, to the point of ridiculing the God's design attic for being worthless. A loss was a loss, the losers were powerless to refute, the God's design attic could only be ruthlessly crushed by the God's tribe refiners. They wanted to resist, but his skills were inferior, so no matter what he said, it was useless. God's tribe wins, next. The 8 pavilion masters all lost. Now, there was no one left in God's design attic. The artificer from the God's tribe looked at God's design attic and laughed. Next, continue. All the elders of the God's design attic lowered their heads. Isn't God's design attic the one who is responsible for refining artifacts? With only this level, isn't it too lacking? Sigh. I thought you guys were so strong. So boring. The artificers of the God's tribe were exceptionally proud. The faces of the elders of God's tribe were also flushed red, their smiles full of contempt. Who else? The trash of the God's design attic, who else can fight against me? Not a single person from the God's design attic stood forward. With a light smile, he said, A bunch of trash, since you guys can't beat me in a row, then I don't think there's a need for your God's design attic to exist anymore. At this moment, Long Fei turned around to look at her white brows, and said indifferently, Grand Disciple, it's your turn to go up on stage. When they heard the presbyter of God's tribe say there is no need for God's design attic to exist, the numerous elders and disciples of the God's design attic trembled. When they heard the presbyter of God's tribe say there is no need for God's design attic to exist, the numerous elders and disciples of the God's design attic trembled. In the dark, Elder Swordsman said indifferently, It's starting. God's tribe is starting to clean this place. Just like the fairy sword sect back then, his eyes were filled with fury, as the scene of the fairy sword sect's death played out in front of his eyes. It was the same back then. The match was a crushing defeat. He wanted to obtain the ancient sword spiritual power's inheritance power, but he was rejected, but in a match, he still lost, and defeated Fairy Sword Sect. After 3 days and 3 nights of brutal slaughter, every disciple had a family of 9. Not even babies in their infancy. The 100,000 bloodstreams from the Fairy Sword Sect flowed like rivers. The entire immortal Sword Mountain was dyed red, and the ghosts of the wronged wailed in grief. They cried for 7 whole days and 7 nights, a scene that Elder Swordsman would never want to experience again in his entire life. Every time the night rang, his body would tremble uncontrollably. Now, history is going to repeat itself. The gods' tribes were about to start cleaning up, none of them would be spared. Actually, when Elder Swordsman saw Murongxiong appearing, he was thinking of how he and Murongxiong should ally, but Grand Court thought that if he lost, God's tribe could let him off this once. But he was wrong. The word mercy had never existed in the God's tribe's methods before. The God's tribe's usual method was to cut the grass at the root. Senior Mier also frowned. Do you want to move? God's design attic was already like this. Grand Court was dead, Second Pavilion Master was severely injured, and a few of the Grand Courtess were either dead or injured. So what if he could be saved? Besides, saving them would cost their lives. They came here to wait for Long Fei. If Long Fei did not appear, would they really bet their lives on it? This time, Elder Swordsman said without hesitation, "Move." Xiao Bai's eyes lit up. Bing Hue was already eager to give it a try. The others were also excited. 1 year of hiding, 1 year of hibernation, the same year of bitter cultivation. All of their efforts were for this very day. Their eyes were all filled with excitement. Now, they were waiting for God's tribe to take action. Damn it, I can't wait any longer. Li Yuanbar's brows tightened slightly. For the first time, his foolish expression revealed a hint of anger, and with a light sound, he said, "Move one and try it." Qingyi snuggled up to him. Similarly, Qingyi's body was emanating a battle intent as well. She also found the God's tribe's actions pleasing to the eye. She also went into battle preparation. Li Yuanbar said solemnly, "This is the place that boss and I agreed to meet. I won't allow anyone to destroy this place." God's tribe. In another place, a figure dressed in tight robes stood proudly in one place like a sword. Watching everything that was happening on the plaza, her eyes trembled slightly. God's tribe. The sword intent on Oya's body moved slightly. The myriad worlds sword chime. In the darkness, a pair of evil spirits like eyes slowly opened. The corners of his mouth curled up as he smiled sinisterly in excitement. It looked like an evil spirit child, causing one's hair to stand on end. He was a heavenly spirit. One of the 3 great heaven pillar walked out of the ancient world's Bedlam lands. Dressed in an evil spirit black robe, with 2 huge eyes, he gave a sinister and eerie laugh, and said indifferently, "Finally. It's my turn to go on stage, he. God's tribe. He. Murongxiong also replied indifferently, "Although you don't want to form an alliance with me, this road is the agreed place between my nephew and the King Kong, then it can't go missing." Annihilation spear? Tch. Murongxiong's finger moved slightly and the air around him fluctuated slightly. Several disciples of the Mu clan moved. Murongxiong sneered and said, "Since your extermination realm spear can fire 1 shot, consider it my loss." Everything was ready. This was, after all, the God's design attic, so if the God's tribe didn't make a move, the people in the dark wouldn't either. Thus, they were all waiting for the God's tribe. As long as the God's tribe made a move, it would be an earth-shattering explosion. In the plaza, the presbyter of God's tribe were still jeering at them. The trash of the God's design attic. A bunch of trash. You waste people are the only ones refining. Go refine your grandmother's ass. Trash is trash. In front of my God's tribe, I can only tremble, ha ha ha. Endless ridicule and all sorts of insults. He had a complacent expression and was incomparably arrogant. That kind of lofty, superior aura was vividly displayed. No one can oppose the God's tribe. We gave you the opportunity to choose before, God's design attic. Since you choose to die, then we can only send you to hell. One last question. If no one can win against me, then go to hell with your God's design attic. Who else? With a loud crash, his voice overwhelmed the entire audience. On the God's design attic side, not a single sound could be heard. No one was a match for the artificers of the God's tribe. They were like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. There was nothing to be done. The God's tribe refiner smiled proudly, "Since you don't have it, then you." At this moment, God's design attic's door suddenly opened with a clang, and he roared, "And this daddy." Boom. His voice was deafening. Everyone turned to look at that direction. Second Pavilion Master. Master. It's the second Pavilion Master. The person who came out of God's Design Attic was Abbot Whitebrow, who had been training in God's Design Attic for 2 days and 2 nights. Seeing by my walk out of the God's Design Attic, the people from the God's tribe were also stunned. Wasn't he seriously injured? Why does it look like nothing happened? Is it done? Impossible. That power can at least keep him from getting out of bed for half a year. God's Design Attic is a refining place. They don't know a thing about pills. It's impossible for any good pills to save him. Everyone began to discuss. However, although he was shocked, Presbyter of God's tribe was not worried. At the start, they only wanted to suppress the aura of the God's Design Attic to let them know who was the sky above the universal realm. A mere white eyebrow? He could turn the sky upside down? Of course not. Seeing Whitebrow walk over, the God's tribe's refiner sneered, and said, "Oh, there's still a piece of trash here? It just so happens that this old man has not had enough practice and is waiting to die." Abbot Whitebrow walked towards refining platform. An elder said, "Second Pavilion Master, Grand Court, he." Abbot Whitebrow said with a heavy voice, I know what happened just now. Rest well over there. Leave the rest to me. Second Pavilion Master, this God's tribe refiner is not simple. His refining techniques is very profound. Yes, especially the refining force. You have to be careful. The clan elders of the God's Design Attic started to worry. Although Whitebrowed Sword's refining techniques was a bit stronger than theirs, they were still uncertain in their hearts when it came to dealing with God's tribe's refiners, and not only that, they were also unsure if he was a God's tribe refiner. Abbot Whitebrow didn't say anything further. He couldn't wait any longer. Let's start. Whitebrow's appearance suddenly occurred. It startled God's tribe. The elder swordsman and the others who were hiding in the dark were also stunned. They were about to make a move, but they didn't expect Whitebrow to step out and continue forging. However, they did not have any hope for Whitebrowed either. Even if they did not understand, they knew that this God's tribe's refiner was not simple. What's the point of competing with a hammer? Just do it, Tan de Pau shouted in anger. Shall we directly attack first? I really can't take it anymore. He couldn't wait. Elder Swordsman slightly said, let's take a look first. This person is a little strange. The injuries on his body will be completely healed in 2 days. Fu Shishan said, God's Design Attic should not have such good pills. Their pills are usually low-level healing pills, and they do not have any special pills, so they would not normally use them. A few times I suggested that they buy some high-level pills, but they were rejected by Grand Court. Susu tilted his head and asked, could it be that Big Brother Long Fei gave me this pellet? Everyone shivered. However, it was only a slight pause. If Long Fei was here, he would have appeared a long time ago. Senior Mie said, don't worry, just take a look first. The Sky Spirit grumbled in annoyance, damn, I was about to go on stage, but you suddenly rushed out. What do you mean by not letting me go on stage? He couldn't wait. When Great Vaja Li Yuanbar appeared, he killed all of the God's tribes present there. The 2 commanders were all dead. They were truly powerful. He wanted to be like that too. Ever since he had left the ancient world to enter the universal realm, he had been searching for such an opportunity, but he couldn't find it. Now that the opportunity had finally come, he couldn't help but want to explode. But Whitebrowed appeared and disrupted his plans to go on stage. Let's see what you can refine. Damn it. On refining platform. The artificer from the God's tribe looked at Whitebrow and sneered, you should be the last artificer from the God's Design Attic, right? Don't say that I didn't give you a chance. If you kneel down and kowtow to me and acknowledge me as your teacher, I will let you live. The words in Whitebrowed Immortal's heart were, I worship your ancestors for 8 generations. However, he held back his words and lightly said, stop with the nonsense. Let's begin. The eyes of the refiner of the God's tribe turned sinister. You're looking to die, right? Then I'll send you to hell. Boom. The hammer moved. A stream of refining force flowed out. At the same time, the refining fire on his body also started to burn. With the fusion of the 2 powers, in an instant, the refining force rose to its peak. However, at this moment, Abbot Whitebrow didn't do anything. He did not take out the hammer nor did he release the refining fire, he just stood there quietly. What is he doing? Damn, could he be scared silly by Presbyter of God's tribe? Ha ha ha. You can see that he's at ease. Later on, he will be crushed by the Presbyter of God's tribe's refining force and he will kneel on the ground, kowtowing and begging for forgiveness. Many weapons craftsmen from the sects mocked. The elders on the side of the God's Design attic were also incomparably anxious. Second Pavilion Master, make your move, if you don't, then it's too late. His refining force will kill you. Master. Senior brother. The people from the God's Design attic looked at the motionless white brows in front of the refining platform, and their hearts were about to go crazy with anxiety. This was the last battle of God's Design attic. If he lost again, the God's Design attic would have no hope. Ha ha ha. Useless, have you been scared silly by my refining force? And what's even more shocking to you? Boom. The God's tribe refiner's hammer moved, and smashed down heavily. The power of the God's tribe gushed out. The injured pavilion masters of the God's Design attic immediately cried out, Second Pavilion Master, be careful, he's here. The powerful attacking refining force directly rushed at Whitebrow's sword, as if it was a huge wave that was dozens of feet tall was surging towards him. With this power, not even an overlord-level body would be able to withstand it. But, even so, Abbot Whitebrow was motionless. Moreover, what made him even more confused was that he directly closed his eyes. Accept your fate. Ha ha ha. He's going to die. You finally resigned yourself to your fate. Just now, you clamored so arrogantly. I thought you were that strong. So you are just scum here to die. Ha ha ha. What dogs hit Second Pavilion Master, in my opinion, he's the biggest trash of the God's Design attic. Ha ha ha. The jeers rose and fell. Abbot Whitebrow's actions were far too abnormal. This was not a normal artifact forging at all. He was courting death. The God's tribe refiner also laughed complacently. You overestimate yourself. Even a trash like you dares to fight against me? Prepare for death. Ha ha ha. Presbyter of God's tribe was also feeling proud. Everyone thought he was going to die when they saw his white brows not moving at all. At the window, the corner of Long Fei's mouth slightly curled, and lightly smiled, and said, To think that you're actually an expert at posturing. Rumble. 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 A huge wave of refining power came smashing down, and at this moment, Whitebrow's eyes twitched, and a ball of flame appeared in his eyes. Immediately after, the refining materials on refining platform floated up. Boom. The flames burned. His mouth silently recited the ancient alchemy chant. That kind of heaven and earth, naturally, the power of the Tao technique began to flow. Boom. In an instant. The several meters tall refining force was extinguished, and instantly disappeared without a trace. Boom. The white-browed idea moved, and smashed down from the sky. In the time it took for lightning to flash, an extremely strong refining force was released from its body. It was like the roar of an azure dragon. He channeled his power. Rumble. The God's tribe refiner was instantly crushed to the point of kneeling on the ground. The kneecap immediately shattered as fresh blood gushed out. The eyes of the blacksmith from the God's tribe turned sinister. His anger overflowed into the sky and he tried to get up, but another force came crashing down. It directly hit the top of his head. Bam! He bowed and knocked his forehead heavily on the ground. He kowtowed right in front of the dead Grand Court. A loud kowtowing sound could be heard. The many clan elders of God's tribe stood up, their expressions secretly changing. The artificer from the God's tribe went crazy and roared, But another force descended. Bam! He heavily kowtowed again, and his forehead was covered in blood. Veins bulged on his forehead, and his entire body trembled. I will kill you, ah! Not waiting for him to stand up. Bam! Another kowtow. A total of 3 kowtows later, his head was splitting apart, and fresh blood continuously flowed out. It was his head that was kowtowed, and similarly, it was the head of the god's tribe. What kind of existence was the god's tribe? The masters of the universal realm, lofty existences, when had they ever kneeled and kowtowed? To kowtow 3 times in a row was a humiliation to the god's tribe. And in front of so many people. The presbyter of God's tribe was furious. Abbot Whitebrow suddenly suppressed the aura on his body. As his body descended, a glowing purple holy artifact descended from the sky. He coldly said, "Refining is complete." The entire audience was stunned. They all stared at Abbot Whitebrow in surprise. It was also at this time. The 2 bodhisattvas that had not moved from the beginning to the end suddenly moved. In that instant, they appeared in front of refining platform, and their cold voices sounded as if they were speaking from hell itself. Ancient alchemy. Ancient alchemy. Ancient alchemy. As soon as his voice fell, the entire hall fell silent. Everyone looked at the bodhisattva in unison. He did not know what kind of refining techniques Long Fei had taught him, he only knew that it was very strong, stronger than the refining techniques he had cultivated in the past. When the ancient strong said it out, he thought to himself, could it be that the ancestor is an ancient almighty powerhouse? Wow. No wonder. No wonder Master said that. I really have eyes but couldn't recognize Mount Tai. It's just that. Senior brother. If he had asked for help earlier, the senior brother would have been fine. In the dark. What did he just say? Ancient alchemy? Impossible, right? The elder swordsman said in a doubtful tone, the ancient alchemy is something that only the ancient world-s can grasp, and moreover, not all ancient strong can grasp it. Xiao Bai muttered, ice and fire, don't you feel that the movements in which he was forging artifacts earlier looked a little familiar? I'm also thinking about that question, but I don't know where I've seen it before. Senior Mie said, could it be that there is an ancient strong that is trying to protect God's design attic? God's design craftsman has entered the ancient world before, could he be his friend in the ancient world? Elder swordsman said, that's possible. Now we have something to play with. Second pavilion master was heavily injured, and completely recovered in 2 days. Within these 2 days, the strength of the refining techniques explosively increased, and it is very likely that the ancient strong is currently in the God's design attic. Elder swordsman stroked his beard and said, this refining competition is not over yet. Tan De Pao said, I actually hope for it to end soon, and start earlier. Ancient alchemy. Only the ancient world's refining techniques could master such a skill. Its appearance shocked the entire audience. Especially the people from God's tribe, the few presbyter of God's tribe's expressions all changed. They walked up to the bodhisattva and said respectfully, Master, do you mean the ancient alchemy? The bodhisattva didn't pay any attention to him. He looked at Abbot Whitebrow and asked, where did you train from? Even Ancient Strong was shocked. With pride between his eyebrows, he said arrogantly, do I need to report my cultivation from any place? Presbyter of God's tribe, continue. Next. His tone was arrogant and full of dominance. Many God's design attic disciples and elders also let out heavy sighs of relief, becoming very excited. The artificer from the God's tribe who had been helped to his feet said in a deep voice, Whitebrow, I will kill you. Bai Mai smiled, Elder, do we have to fight now? Is this the way it's done in the God's tribe? Many of the presbyter of God's tribe's faces darkened. A God's tribe refiner shouted, I am here to experience your ancient alchemy. Boom. The moment his aura appeared, it burst forth. The super strong refining fire was burning. Holding the purple heavenly hammer in his hand, he hammered down. Buzz. The purple chi wave flipped and shot out. Abbot Whitebrow's body moved. He chanted a chant silently, the method seemingly very slow, but in reality, it was shockingly fast. Seeing the purple-colored refining force rushing over, Zhong Xian frowned. Break. Boom. A loud explosion resounded. A wave of power surged forward, the purple energy crushed, and the refining force released by Abbot Whitebrow directly pierced through. Boom. Plop. The God's tribe artificer knelt on the ground fiercely as the kneecap shattered. Abbot Whitebrow flicked the aura on his body. Bam! His head heavily knocked against the ground, causing the bluestone on the ground to crack from the kowtow, and fresh blood to spurt out from his forehead. Bam! Bam! After 3 consecutive kowtows, Presbyter of God's tribe's forehead was cracked from the kowtow, and even his scalp was numb. Against Whitebrow's refining force, he had no chance of counterattack, and could only be crushed. This was the difference in their levels. The difference in refining realm. God's design attic wins. Next. I want to take revenge on you all one by one. Senior brother, just watch. I definitely won't let God's tribe touch you. I will definitely protect this place well. Baimai looked at the presbyter of God's tribe and asked, who else? Come on up. All of you can come at me together. His temper was explosive. He was the type of person who would gladly accept kindness and enmity. Now that he had crushed God's tribe, he would be extremely arrogant. All of a sudden, God's tribe was stomped on. Whitebrow's refining techniques was too strong, they were not his match at all. However, what kind of identity does the presbyter of God's tribe have? God's tribe. How could they admit defeat? An elder shouted loudly, Whitebrow, you just made the people of God's tribe kneel down. You dare to humiliate God's tribe. This is disrespect to God's tribe, disrespect to Emperor Xian. I think you're tired of living. Since he couldn't win the duel, he might as well find another reason. Whitebrow sneered, and said, Today is the artifact forging ceremony. Didn't God's tribe want to test our God's design attic's refining techniques? Come on. Send out your God's tribe's strongest refiner. I will use my strength to prove to you that this is the universal realm's strongest refining place. The elders of the God's design attic also walked over. Right, if you have the guts, then try refining it. Come on, let's compete with second pavilion master. If we can't beat him, we'll just find another *T bowl. All of a sudden, his momentum rose. The presbyter of God's tribe were all abnormally angry, but they could not compare to him. They did not dare to truly use force, because there was still a Murong Xiong in the shadows. This guy is a space inheritor. Who knew how many experts he had brought with him? Once the battle started, even they would not be able to obtain any benefits. But, if he were to leave just like that, then where would the face of the God's tribe go? Where is the dignity of the God's tribe? If they could not even take down a small artifact forging ground like the God's design attic, what would the great elders of the God's tribe think of them? He would just be discarded like a piece of trash. No way. A few elders' eyes tightened, and an elder from the idea said with a sound transmission, Elders, I just released my sound soul, it won't be long before we arrive at the shrine's palace. A look of excitement appeared on their faces. An elder said, What did you say? If we can't even solve this little problem, how will we be able to stand up in the shrine in the future? That elder said, Don't worry, when I say Murong Xiong is here, the Grand Elder will definitely send people over. Xiao Yarrow City, his mortal enemy. Murong Xiong was one of the top 3 people on the wanted list. If they could take Murong Xiong down, Emperor Xian would definitely be heavily injured. The great elders of the shrine would never let go of this opportunity. Several elders laughed excitedly. A mere God's design attic dares to be so arrogant in front of us God's tribe? Just you wait. This place will soon be in ruins. No one can save this place. Ha ha ha. The few of them were laughing in their hearts. Baimai didn't know what they were talking about, and spoke with a deep voice, Do any of you dare to come up and fight? If not, then please leave God's design attic. Presbyter of God's tribe was stunned. The Bodhisattva moved, and stood on top of the refining platform. If they left the God's design attic, it would be difficult to enter again. If they left the God's design attic, it would be difficult to enter again. God's design attic was an ethereal secret world, it was basically impossible to enter without opening. If they leave, then even if the shrine's reinforcements come, it will be useless. Just as the presbyter of God's tribe's faces darkened. The 2 ancient strong S from ancient world moved slightly, and a bodhisattva stood in front of the refining platform, slightly extending a hand. Black hands. It was as hard as steel. But his hand was filled with a black baleful aura, like 10,000 tiny black snakes slowly moving on his arm. It was extremely terrifying. The presbyter of God's tribe looked surprised, and said, We still have a ancient strong. That's right. I forgot about the two lords. Ha ha ha. They knew very well in their hearts why the two ancient strong-s had come to the God's Design attic. They came to practice. Come to cripple the God's Design attic. However, the presbyter of God's tribe cautiously asked, Master, do you want to compete with him in artifact forging? They did not know the situation of these two bodhisattvas. They did not know whether they knew how to forge artifacts or not. If they could not even hold a hammer on the stage, then it would be embarrassing. The bodhisattva nodded his head, looked at Whitebrow and said faintly, Let me see how far your ancient alchemy has been cultivated, and also let you experience the true ancient alchemy. As soon as he finished. Inside the God's Design attic, Long Fei trembled slightly. A real ancient alchemy? What do you mean? Could it be that the ancient alchemy that I used to cultivate in the past is not authentic? Tch. Long Fei expressed contempt in his heart. He had the inheritance of the ancient power on him. How could the ancient alchemy he cultivated in be fake? However, Long Fei looked at the black baleful chi on his hand and his heart tightened, a black-colored refining fire, that was basically not released at all, and the refining fire is already wrapped in his body, this ability. Very strong. The aura on his body was extremely strong. It felt as if there was an endless amount of power within it. Abbot Whitebrow made a gesture of invitation, saying, Let's see who's the true owner of the ancient alchemy. As soon as he finished speaking, the refining competition had begun. The bodhisattva waved his hand. Boom. The black flames moved. The surrounding presbyter of God's tribes were shocked and immediately rolled out. Their mouths were covered in mud and they looked extremely miserable, but they did not dare to complain at all. He even started praising her. What a powerful refining force. Amazing, it's going to be amazing. The Lord is mighty. The black aura moved and wrapped around a piece of deep-sea mysterious iron. In the air, a black flame burned crazily. The power of the heaven and earth, and naturally, the Tao technique started to move. However, the power of the Tao technique was naturally different from the world of the ancient alchemy that Long Fei cultivated in. The power he released was incomparably tyrannical. Furthermore, it carried a sense of viciousness, evil, ruthlessness, and an endless amount of killing intent. Darkness attribute ancient alchemy? Similarly. On the other side, Abbot Whitebrow did the same thing. However, the power he released was as weak as an ant compared to his opponents. Bai Mai's eyebrows tightened, her heart was not in a mess, she cultivated according to the secret technique Long Fei taught her, step by step. Humph. The bodhisattva coldly looked at Whitebrow's actions, and said with a cold sneer, "An ancient alchemy like yours is simply a blasphemy to the ancient power." Scram. As soon as his words fell, he flipped his hand. Rumble. The black infernal energy rushed out like a wild beast. Abbot Whitebrow raised his eyes, his reaction wasn't slow either. The refining force released from his body surged forth to block the attack. The two forces collided. And then, Abbot Whitebrow's eyes narrowed. It was as if his power had been neglected, and did not have the slightest effect on the black power. Not only that, his mind suddenly started to become chaotic. All sorts of evil powers surged into his mind. Boom. Baichi closed his eyes, resisting evil thoughts, but a black infernal energy rushed out, as if the heavens were suddenly pressing down on them. Bam! His entire body was crushed down from the air. It crashed to the ground. The semi-finished product he refined also turned into powder in an instant. Fart! He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face turned pale. The people of God's design attic moved forward together. Can this kind of place be called a refining location? How laughable! The Bodhisattva coldly said. He raised his right hand, and the black infernal energy gathered once again, covering half of the refining plaza. His eyebrows moved. Rumble. 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 It was as if a layer of black sky had crashed down, and all the people in God's design attic were squashed until they kneeled on the ground had caved in, and fresh blood gushed out of their bodies. He was able to crush everyone in God's design attic with one hand. It was terrifyingly powerful. The people of God's tribe were stunned. Those sect powerhouses all looked as if they had seen a god. Their eyes were filled with worship, and they were on the verge of kneeling down and kowtowing. Ha ha ha! Presbyter of God's tribe laughed out loud. Abbot Whitebrow, you are crazy. How arrogant. You think you can compete with the ancient strong with just this little bit of refining techniques? Ha ha ha. The clan elders of the God's tribe were all excited. The ancient strong's refining force had far exceeded their expectations. He could crush the entire God's design attic with a single hand. He was too strong. If they had known this would happen, they wouldn't have needed to fight in a war of attrition. An ancient strong would have been enough. Whitebrow was crushed to the point of incomparable pain. It was the same for the elders of the God's design attic and their disciples. Do you want to make a move? God's design attic is finished. Make your move. I'm going to lose control of my power. Li Yuanbar stared at the ancient strong and frowned. Ancient devil. Do you know him? Qingyi asked. Li Yuanbar said, I know the black fiend qi on his body. They should be the earliest creatures in the ancient world, and also the first batch of creatures bred in the ancient world. The reason they are called organisms and not monsters is also because they are not humans and not demons. It is because they have not successfully evolved. Qingyi didn't understand. Li Yuanbar continued, Emperor Xian actually let them out. What is he trying to do? Isn't he afraid that the ancient world will experience chaos again? What good will it do him? Qingyi said, in the past 100 years, he rarely goes into seclusion in universal realm, and no one in God's tribe knows what he wants to do. In this past year, he had constantly arranged for powerhouses from the ancient world to enter the universal realm. Why would these evil people all listen to his orders? Li Yuanbar said, Emperor Xian must be doing something. Qingyi said, do you want to make a move? The people of God's design attic will not be able to hold on any longer. Li Yuanbar looked again and was about to make his move. The God's design attic's door was pushed open once again. Clang, a loud sound was heard. All the black infernal energy suddenly vanished. Clang, clang. The door swung open from the inside with a soft sound. The sound wasn't loud, but it was as if a thunderclap had erupted in that instant, causing it to shake violently. Not only that, the pressure that was pressing down on the elders of the God's design attic and the black fiendish aura that the disciples were emitting had all disappeared. In an instant, it was all gone. He was crushed by an even more powerful force. The crowd was startled and immediately quieted down. Everyone looked at the young man at the entrance. It stopped for a moment. A presbyter of God's tribe coldly asked in disdain, a waste of warrior realm? God's design attic has such a trash. Abbot Whitebrow stood up with difficulty and said with excitement, Martial ancestor. The entire audience was silent again, looking at Bai Mai in shock, then looked at Long Fei. Poochie. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Presbyter of God's tribe laughed crazily. Those weapons craftsmen from the other sects also started to laugh loudly. Ha ha ha. Is Abbot Whitebrow an idiot? It must be just my brain. He's actually calling me a little grandmaster, and one even more so a waste of the warrior realm. Ha ha ha. I'm dying of laughter. Whitebrow, you can call me Grand Ancestor Master now, ha ha ha. Many people mocked him. Presbyter of God's tribe said, God's design attic was single-handedly created by you all. He is your master. I never thought that he would even have a master, ha ha ha. But his master is actually a trash of the warrior realm. Oh my God, I'm going to die from laughter. I always thought that your God's design attic was not bad. Ha ha ha. I'm dying of laughter. There was nothing to mock about Long Fei's appearance. However, as the ancestor master of Abbot Whitebrow, he was different. Moreover, even the elders and disciples of the God's design attic were stunned. Many of them reminded him in a low voice, Second Pavilion Master, where did the ancestor come from? Our master doesn't even have a master, how could we have a grandmaster? Master, did you get it wrong? Who is this kid? Everyone was talking about it. On the plaza, both the God's tribe and the sect's artificers were laughing at him. But the eyes of the two ancient strong turned sinister, their gaze were sharp as knives, looking at Long Fei. The two of them did not move their gazes away from him, and only stared at him. His expression darkened. In the dark. But it was boiling. It's the boss. It's Big Brother Long Fei. Ha ha ha. Brat, you finally appeared. I thought you wouldn't come. Boss. Both of Li Yuanbar's eyes were filled with tears as he clenched his fists tightly. The space around him had been torn apart and the thick and pure energy seemed to be able to shatter space itself. Qingyi also looked at Long Fei, then looked at Li Yuanbar. She was a little jealous, and muttered, "You will always be number one in the heart of Lubi." It was as if he was jealous. An old man whispered into Murong Xiong's ears, "City Lord, he is the young lord." Murong Xiong had never seen Long Fei before, he only knew that his nephew was called Long Fei. Hearing the words of the old man beside him, his eyes suddenly sank. "My nephew? My sister's son?" Old eyes tear-filled. Murong Xiong's expression was incomparably excited, and was about to rush out. However, he was pulled back by two old men and said, "City Lord, there's no rush. If you go out like this, you will only reveal his identity. You must know that he is God's tribe's most wanted criminal. Also, his cultivation. Why is it warrior realm? When the western regions was collapsing, his cultivation should have been at overlord realm, but how did he become a warrior realm after disappearing for a year?" Murong Xiong grinned, "You know my ass, he's my nephew, my nephew. I can't even see through him. How can you see through him?" Ha ha ha. The elder smiled awkwardly, "Yes, the Lord is right. The young lord was born of the young lady, how could we see through him? The three Mu clan siblings. Be it in terms of talent, potential, or physical aptitude, Mu Wana was the strongest. She was the strongest in Mu clan for the past 10 million years. Furthermore, the fusion between him and the number one genius of the Long family, Long Zhanting, and the fusion of some kind of power, how could ordinary people see through such a strong power? However, even though he said that, Murong Xiong was still very worried in his heart. Moreover, that was his nephew. Right now, he did not even know where his sister was. His second brother Murong Qi had also disappeared and he was not married either. If something were to happen to him, even Murong Xiong himself would not forgive himself. And then, Murong Xiong said, "The two of you go to his side, whoever dares to touch him, immediately kill them." The two old men moved slightly as they traveled through the void. A slight ripple appeared in the space beside Long Fei. Two old men were in position. Murong Xiong laughed excitedly, "My nephew, you finally appeared, hey." In the plaza. The ancient strong in front of the refining platform retracted his gaze and turned over with one hand. Boom. The Black Fury skill condensed once again. It was a black mass, and this time, it covered half of the god's design attic. It was like thick layers of clouds that were constantly rolling down, and a powerful force continuously came crushing down. Boom. 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 Long Fei raised both his eyes, and said indifferently, "Is this the power of your so-called true ancient alchemy?" Finished. He raised his foot and lightly descended. Buzz. A beam of light shot out from the ground. Instantly, the black infernal energy in the sky vanished. This step was like an earth-shattering one. The expressions of those people who were mocking Long Fei a moment ago were warped and ugly, as if they had just been slapped in the mouth. All of their eyes were staring at Long Fei. Ancient Strong's aura shook. Boom. This time, both hands moved at the same time. The black devilish chi wrapped around his body rushed towards Long Fei like two flood dragoness. It continued to emit vicious roars. Roar. Roar. The scene was extremely shocking. There were many people secretly worrying about Long Fei. "Boss, be careful. I have to get out. I can't let Big Brother Long Fei disappear once again." They had to lose control. However, it was still stopped by Elder Swordsman and the rest. Facing the two gigantic flood dragoness, Long Fei acted like he didn't see them, and walked towards refining platform, step by step. With a heavy cry, Abbot Whitebrow said, "Martial Ancestor, be careful." Long Fei smiled slightly. The flood dragon rammed into him. The flood dragon's head instantly shattered when it was still half a meter away from him. The flood dragon's body continued to strike. However, it was as if there was an air shield on Long Fei's body, blocking all of the energy outside. It could not hurt a single hair on his body. This was not the case. If the ancient strong wasn't released by the refining force, Long Fei would have already been blasted flying. But the power released by the ancient strong was the refining force. If that was the case, his artifact spirit, refining techniques could completely crush others. Even if the ancient artifact forging king appeared, it would be useless, let alone his strength in the ancient alchemy. Their realms were on a completely different level. Long Fei walked to refining platform step by step. Looking at the ancient strong, he smiled lightly and said, "Is it fun?" Too strong. Far. Too strong. Far the refining techniques that the ancient powerhouse had displayed was too overbearing. This was not an ordinary artifact forging technique. Following the bombardment of his powers, the sky above the god's design attic was filled with black chi waves, which were like clouds, with the plaza as the center and layer upon layer covering it, as if this was not artifact forging. He wasn't the one refining. The heavens were refining. It was just releasing the power of the heavens. The heaven and earth, naturally, the Tao technique, this was the essence of the ancient alchemy. To be able to cultivate to such a level. This it could no longer be described as strong. Abbreviation, he was the peak master refiner of the ancient world. Long Fei looked in their eyes and was secretly shocked in his heart, the highest level of profoundness of the ancient alchemy. I have never stepped into this realm. If we did not meet Horcrux's family, I'm afraid. Dragonfly calmly, waiting for ancient strong to end. Day the Elder grew excited. When the true power of the ancient strong was displayed, there was only admiration in their hearts. They were too strong, so strong that no one could defeat them. Baitu. Presbyter of God's tribe all became pleased with themselves. You must be scared silly, right? This is the true refining power of the God's tribe. What God's design attic? What God's design craftsmen are you talking about? They're all trash. Kid, do you know what it means to forge artifacts? Are you able to handle hammers? Ha ha ha. He must be scared to the point of peeing. Each a taunting sound rang out. Dragon Fei ignored them and stood there quietly. The people from the God's design attic were also getting anxious. Is he still going to lose? The refining techniques that he has displayed is too powerful. I'm afraid even Master would not be able to win against him. What should we do? Even though he had passed on the ancient alchemy of the second senior brother, his ancient alchemy simply cannot compare to that ancient strong's. Far the refining techniques displayed by the ancient powerhouse was an invincible existence. It was simply impossible for them to win. The majority of the people in the plaza all knew about smithing. They all knew that Long Fei couldn't win, because the refining force displayed by the ancient strong was just like a 360-degree angle without a dead angle. It was useless no matter how you attacked, you could not win. Kwakyu Murong Xiong, who did not know much about smithing, grinned. CK your uncle, you sure are good at smithing? Who are you? How old is my nephew? At the same time, he also told the two elders who were standing beside Long Fei, be careful, you must protect my nephew well. Rumble, a loud explosion resounded. The black infernal energy was like a mushroom cloud, exploding into the sky. Next, Fa Jiu powerhouse pressed his hands together, and the explosive sound disappeared. An exquisite black lotus slowly descended. Every single petal seemed to have been polished and was incomparably exquisite. Ancient Strong held onto the black lotus and said indifferently, it's called Wu Tian. Wu Tian. Isn't the name of this treasure too overbearing? Not even the sky. Everyone was startled. At this moment, Fa Jiu powerhouse moved his right hand and released the black lotus. The black lotus immediately released its energy and covered the entire God's design attic. The sky instantly disappeared. Everything was in darkness. It was not the darkness of the night, but the darkness of the night. It was as if the sky had disappeared. All the entire scene was in chaos. Presbyter of God's tribe laughed excitedly. Ha ha ha. Kid, did you see that? This is the real ancient alchemy. Who do you think you are? Contempt the God's tribe? Contempt the Emperor Xian? Fighting with the God's tribe? Ha ha ha. You are just one ant among thousands of ants, and you want to overturn the heavens with just a little ant. Ridiculous, laughable. Ha ha ha. The clan members were boiling with excitement. The divine treasures refined by the ancient strong were too powerful, they could even cover the sky. Everything was under the control of the Black Lotus. This kind of divine treasure was definitely an existence of super artifact in the universal realm. Who could refine such a divine treasure? Kwaku, he could be considered the #1 refiner of the universal realm. Even the God's design craftsman would not be able to refine it. This a match. God's tribe was victorious. Just when everyone thought that ancient strong would win, an ear-piercing sound came out. Clang, 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 every sparks flew from every blow. It's so dazzling in the dark. It moved. Master Ancestor has started forging. Abbot Whitebrow cried out in alarm. Weeks the surroundings quieted down, and everyone's gaze turned towards Long Fei. Only seeing that Long Fei did not use ancient alchemy, his refining movements were not gaudy either. Knock after knock, it was like he was a blacksmith working in a blacksmith shop in the countryside. Ha ha ha. This was also called refining? This is called forging. This is so funny. Brat, I think you're scared silly. You can refine a hammer like that. What a joke. Refining, there were a lot of things that needed to be paid attention to. However, one thing was important, spiritual energy, such as if he didn't even have spiritual power, then he wasn't refining, but forging. Long Fei was now like a blacksmith. Every time his hammer landed, there would not be any spiritual energy left. Ancient Strong also laughed coldly. Looking at Long Fei's hammer on the left and right, he could not help but say, I overestimated you. He looked at her coldly. There was no comparison between the two. It was completely a day, and one of them was in the infernal realm. An existence that even looking up to would not be able to reach. Everyone in the venue was laughing at him. Even the disciples of the God's design attic were looking down, unable to bear to continue watching. This was because this kind of refining method was not something that could be performed on the stage, it was just like fighting a blacksmith. Morning F***CK, remember these people who have mocked my nephew before. All of them will die in the next round. Laughing at my nephew? Have you asked me? This is so infuriating. Mourning with his hands on his waist, Rong Xiong's anger could not help but wish that he could instantly kill all the people who mocked Long Fei. The jeers rose and fell. Dragon fly as if she didn't hear him. It was still one hammer beating after another. However, with every strike on his heart, there would be a faint movement. The forging soul in his body was surging, as if they could feel the mocking laughter from the surroundings. They were roaring. Apparatus, the refining techniques of the Soul Clan, was slowly being wielded by Long Fei. It was being wielded by the hammer, it was being wielded by the hammer slowly. The law was mediocre. But yes. However, the power was surging crazily and no one could see it. Kid, do you still want to continue? That's not necessary, is it? Do you not think your loss is ugly enough? Ha ha ha. You're just wasting your time, you can't win. Just tremble. Everyone laughed. It was also at this time. Dragon, after the last hammer strike, he looked up and said lightly, it's done. Done. Long Fei kept the hammer that the Horcrux's family gave him and looked at the ancient strong in the darkness. Done. Long Fei kept the hammer that the Horcrux's family gave him and looked at the ancient strong in the darkness. At this moment, the Black Lotus was still covering the sky. God's design attic was still in darkness. Not only that, the Black Lotus was not only blocking the sky above God's design attic, his power was slowly being released. He wanted to refine the entire God's design attic. It allowed all life here to turn into the power of the Black Lotus. As soon as Long Fei finished his sentence, Presbyter of God's tribe laughed and said, Brat, what can you refine? Is it a hoe or an iron rake? Our God's tribe does not cultivate land, you might not even be able to use these farm tools. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Everyone burst out laughing. The ancient strong said in a heavy voice, all of you, quiet down. The entire arena instantly fell silent. Ancient Strong sneered, and said, "Let me see what kind of trash you can create." His eyes flashed with a cold light. As long as Long Fei was able to refine something weaker than him, then Long Fei would definitely die. Killing intent. At this moment, a few shadows quietly approached from within the crowd of refining masters of the sect. Murong Xiong also frowned. Not good, he wants to make a move. Li Yuanbar's eyes widened as he quickened his pace. In the darkness, the undercurrents surged. In the instant that Ancient Strong's eyes flashed with a cold light, the entire refining plaza became strange. Long Fei propped it up with his right hand and said with a smile, "What was the name of the black lotus you refined earlier?" Ancient Strong said, "Wu Tian." Long Fei laughed. "What a coincidence, there's only one word between you and my divine treasure." Suppressing heaven, Ancient Strong's eyes suddenly exploded, his fists clenched tightly as he said sinisterly, "Brat, your words are powerful and useless. This world is about strength. I lost once before. After that, I swore to myself that I would absolutely not lose again. Even if I were to fight with someone like you who doesn't understand refining, I would go all out." "You want to defeat me? There is no one in this world who can do that." Long Fei asked with great interest, "I really want to know who you once lost to." Ancient Strong's expression turned sinister as the corners of his eyes twitched. His eyes flashed with endless hatred as he said, "Dragon Clan." "Huh." Long Fei was startled, and said, "What a coincidence." Ancient Strong said, "Stop wasting time, display the power of your divine treasure." Long Fei laughed, "I'm afraid you will lose a second time." With a lift of his palm, he floated into the air. The divine treasure he forged was also something that everyone could see. Poochie. Ha ha ha. Waha. An iron cake. Oh my god, I was about to die from laughter. I thought you would forge an agricultural tool, or at the very least a kitchen knife. I didn't expect you to forge such a piece of metal. Ha ha ha. More people started to mock him. This was a godly treasure. This was clearly a piece of scrap metal. The Ancient Strong said in disdain, "You are just like this piece of metal, both are trash." It's over. With that, the Ancient Strong activated the Black Lotus. He wanted to refine the entire God's design attic. He exerted his strength. Letting out the power of the Black Lotus, Ancient Strong laughed, "Watch the waste that you have refined, watch how he turns into powder." Boom. The Black Lotus sank. Space shook. It was also at this moment that the iron dregs on the discus were shaken off. Buzz. A bright light shot out. Golden runes appeared on the surface of the metal pancake. At this moment, it wasn't a metal pancake but a disc. The pointer on the disc rotated. All sorts of tiny runes exploded with power one after another. This wasn't all. As soon as the Black Lotus touched the disc, catcher, the Black Lotus immediately began to crack. Ancient Strong's eyes turned sinister. Impossible, absolutely impossible. The power from his body surged out and was completely channeled into the Black Lotus. The black infernal energy emitted from his body became even more ferocious. Streams of infernal energy smashed into the disc. But the glowing disc completely ignored it. It was completely useless. No matter how it attacked, it was like a boulder, not moving at all. Impossible. Impossible. I definitely won't lose a second time. Absolutely not. Ancient Strong acted like he had gone mad, releasing all the power from his body and started attacking crazily. It was completely useless. The more he attacked, the more eye-piercing the light on the disc became. It floated in midair like a sun. The entire God's design attic became clear again. Those who had mocked Long Fei earlier turned mute one by one, raising their heads to look at the sky. At this time, they were speechless. The faces of the elders of the God's tribe turned ugly, clenching their fists tightly, as though they were trying to use more strength. Boom, boom, boom. He continued to bombard the disc. The more he attacked, the more intense the light from the Black Lotus's disc became. The black murderous aura of the Black Lotus was completely dispelled by the dazzling light, leaving only a lonely Black Lotus in the air that continued to crack. Hoo. Impossible. Ancient Strong bellowed, "I am the strongest blacksmith in the ancient world, no one can compare to me, it is impossible for me to lose again." Ah! He exploded forth with his strength. An even more powerful force was unleashed. Long Fei said faintly, "You have attacked so many times, is it now my turn to attack?" Boom. Subdue. The disc moved and a golden light covered everything. Hualala. All of the black lotuses were transformed into dust. It was also at this time that the sky seemed like it was going to split open. The energy released by the disc was too strong, and even the sky could not withstand it. He saw the black lotus break apart. The center of Ancient Strong's brows tightened and let out a primal roar. Roar. The clothes on his body were ripped apart. The veil also flew out, revealing her true appearance. The entire audience was stunned. Everyone was retreating, their faces pale and their hearts trembling. His appearance was extremely ugly, his nose was sunken, and his eyes were protruding. His body seemed to be made up of all sorts of things, as if he was a cripple who had yet to finish evolving. Long Fei had seen all kinds of demons and monsters, but he had never seen anything that had yet to evolve. However, regardless if he finished evolving or not, Long Fei did not care. Because he only recognized the boss. Ancient Strong revealed his true appearance, baring his teeth, his eyes staring straight at Long Fei. Die. Boom. He rushed forward. Space itself shattered. Everything around Long Fei shattered. Even the elders of the Xiao Yaro City who were hiding in space were exposed. His eyes widened in shock. The only thing he could say was, "Young lord, be careful." Long Fei smirked. "Damn, the boss is going berserk." Enraged, he directly went berserk. Enraged, he directly went berserk. The glow on the boss body turned from gold to dark red. In this situation, the boss strength, speed, and attack attributes would be increased by twofold. Similarly, in terms of defense, it was reduced by twofold. The power unleashed by the Ancient Strong was extremely terrifying and unstoppable. His speed was once again so fast that no one could react to it. At this moment, Murong Xiong's eyes turned sinister. He wanted to charge forward, but it was too late. On the other side, the aura around Li Yuanbar's body was also violently churning, and he wanted to rush up as soon as possible, but it was similarly too late. "Brother Yuanba? Yuanba?" Seeing Li Yuanbar rushing out, the space between the two of them tightened, and their gazes fell on Long Fei's body at the same time. "Boss!" Instantly, the two King Kong suddenly moved as well. Xiao Bai and Bing Hua also moved. However, no matter who it was, they were unable to catch up to the falling Ancient Strong's attacks in terms of speed. In other words, no one could block this attack for Long Fei. Presbyter of God's tribe laughed proudly. "So what if I can refine a high-level divine treasure? What did this world rely on? It's not a weapon, but a fist. You are merely a piece of trash from the warrior realm." Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Who else could resist the Ancient Strong's attack? Not to mention a dregs of the warrior realm, even a peak overlord powerhouse would not necessarily be able to withstand a single blow. How could the power of the ancient world be enough to contend against the power of the ancient world? Little bastard, tremble. Ha ha ha. Presbyter of God's tribe laughed loudly. Long Fei's brows shook, then said indifferently, "You're right, this world does not rely on artifact forging, but on fists." However, as he said that, Long Fei's lips curled. "Do you think your fist is as big as my fist?" He raised his eyes. He turned his gaze to Zhentian in the sky and laughed softly. "It has always been you who has been attacking. Now it's time for my divine treasure to explode. Sun Soul. Subdue." Long Fei moved and activated his heavenly treasure. All the power in the world surged. Boom. Wung. An ear-piercing hum exploded. In an instant, the strong light blinded everyone's eyes, and the entire God's Design attic was enveloped in the strong light. It was incomparably powerful. Long Fei was a divine treasure refined using the Horcrux's family's refining techniques. At the same time, there was a forging soul in the divine treasure. What surprised Long Fei was that the released forging soul was actually Yang Soul. The third ranked among the 10 great forging souls, the super artifact soul. How could its power be comparable to the power of the ancient world? The blinding light enveloped everything. No one could open their eyes, not even the ancient strong who had pounced on them. What is this? It's too hot. Is the sun going to explode? Ah! This is too hard to bear. It's as if the entire world is on fire. The people on the gods' tribe's side all looked in pain, their bodies were trembling non-stop, they did not dare open their eyes, and when they did, they felt as though they would be blinded by the intense light. Ah! Ah! Many people cried out in pain. Ancient Strong, who was flying towards him, belonged to the special species that had not evolved well. Like a mutated human, he felt an intense light and his eyes widened in anger. In that instant, ah! He let out a painful cry, and his eyes began to emit black smoke. Blind. He had become blind in an instant. How intense was this light? However, Ancient Strong did not stop. Furthermore, when he opened his eyes earlier, he saw the location of Long Fei. Die. Boom. Rumble. The sky darkened, and it was as if the power of a whole new heaven was crushing towards Long Fei. Long Fei's body slightly sank, and said in a displeased tone, "Fuck, fighting if you can't win in a match, for something like the MMP, you still want to kill me?" Sun Soul, suppress. Long Fei felt very uncomfortable. His cultivation was too low, if not for the protection of the body of Tauti, he would have been smashed to smithereens by now. If this palm attack landed, he definitely wouldn't be able to stop it. He was now an ant, and the Ancient Strong was as big as an elephant. The difference in power was simply too great. However, even so, Long Fei did not take a step back. The power in the boundless heaven changed once again as a shadow flew out. Ancient Strong slapped his palm down. "Die!" he roared. In an instant, the shadow flew out, superimposing on Long Fei's body. The shadow changed, becoming a giant, godlike existence. He blocked the attack with a palm strike. Buzz. Rumble. Rumble. The two forces clashed. Roars came from all directions and the gods' design Attic S were almost unable to endure it as several mountains fell to the ground. The cracks in space continued to spread out. Everyone present was trembling in their hearts. They could not even stand steadily. The fear of death assaulted them, as if it was the end of the world. Many people were so scared that they directly kneeled on the ground. Miserable screams rang out. In the sky, Ancient Strong's huge palm print was still pressed on the ground in mid-air. The shadow of the Sun Soul on Long Fei's body did not move at all. The power disappeared and the light dimmed. The crushing pressure on the plaza weakened. Many people raised their heads to look at the sky and gulped down their saliva. The scene before them was like a battle between gods. He could only look up, but he couldn't do anything about it. Everyone stopped. Even the three great Vaja, who had been madly rushing forward, stopped in their tracks. They were also shocked. Because, at this moment, Ancient Strong's body was cracking. Crack. KCHA. Bang, bang. His body was cracking like a stone statue, first with his palm, and then with his palm. The giant palm slowly turned to ash. Then there was the huge body. Boom, boom, boom. The corner of Long Fei's mouth raised upwards, and secretly laughed. MMP, it's fortunate that Zhen Wutian absorbed so much power just now, if not this move would have been very hard to deal with. Long Fei's refining techniques was very strong. However, refining techniques could only be strong in the refining force, his cultivation was still in the warrior realm, and in the universal realm, he was in existence at level 1. So no matter how strong the divine treasure he refined was, it was useless if he did not have the strength to activate it. However, just now, Zhen Wutian had crazily absorbed the energy released by the Black Lotus, and only then could he see the scene of the Sun Soul possessing the body. The power of the Sun Soul crushed the darkness element, completely suppressing it. Of course, it wasn't that Long Fei couldn't block this palm, it was just that he still had the power of the Dao Tai, just that. That would expose him too much. This palm attack was something the body of Tauti could endure, and he himself would probably be injured as well. Hualala. Long Fei looked at the hundreds of meters long wound on Ancient Strong's head, which was shrinking crazily. He smiled and said excitedly, "It's going to explode." His HP continued to drop rapidly. His HP continued to drop rapidly. Ancient Strong's body was also wildly collapsing. The string of damage numbers on top of his head was uncountable. Ha ha ha. It's going to explode. It's going to explode. Long Fei was a little impatient. Even though he had been to the Hall of Eternal Life before, and any divine treasure of the universal realm was useless to him. However, at this moment, he couldn't help but get excited. No matter how many bosses they killed, the moment the boss was about to drop, they couldn't help but be excited. Hualala. Hualala. Large chunks of blood were shed one after another. Ancient Strong's body continued to turn into fine powder as he floated down. Everyone looked at the sky in a daze. How did this happen? No, impossible. He's the Ancient Strong. He's the Ancient Strong. How could this be? He's the Ancient Strong that the Emperor Xian brought out from the ancient world. It's impossible for him to lose, impossible. The faces of the elders of the gods' tribe twisted one after another. He had lost in refining. Now, even the Ancient Strong was defeated with a single move. This. Something unacceptable. Too strong. One move. One move. Just one move. A move from the warrior realm, this. How is that possible? I just don't get it. Who is he? I don't believe that he is a warrior realm. That's impossible. On the plaza, each and every one of the sex powerhouses looked at Long Fei with doubt in their eyes, and watched Ancient Strong's body slowly peel off. To anyone in the universal realm, the Ancient Strong was an existence that they looked up to and could not reach. Who could resist when the Ancient Strong came out to fight? However, now, it was being blocked by a soldier. Their brains were all twitching. Looking at the shocked expressions on the plaza, Xiao Bai and the others were extremely excited. No matter what happened, even if Long Fei split the sky, they would not feel anything amiss. Because he is Long Fei. He was a miracle. He was an invincible existence. Anything strange or unbelievable to him was normal. They couldn't wait to run out and loudly shout at the world, "Did you see that? He is my boss, his name is Long Fei, did you all see him?" The excitement was indescribable. It was hard to describe it with words. Xiao Bai and the rest stood there, quietly staring at Long Fei, who was on the refining platform, all of them smiling and excited without uttering a sound. Just like that, Long Fei continued to posture from afar. There was only one word in their hearts. Awesome. Seeing Long Fei's explosive strength and seeing Long Fei's crushing pressure, their hearts felt even better than what they felt now. Mighty and domineering. Heh. Li Yuanbar gave a silly smile and scratched his head. Why does boss need my protection? He's the boss after all. Heh. Qingyi looked at Long Fei and said indifferently, "What a freak. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha." The most excited person in the entire arena was Murong Xiong. He had almost pooped out of fright, and now, he saw that Long Fei had defeated Ancient Strong in one move. He smiled like his grandfather. Awesome. Awesome. It's no wonder you are my, Murong Xiong's nephew, ha ha ha. No wonder you would become the #1 wanted criminal in the God's tribe. No wonder Long Zhanting was willing to bear the pain of Long Tai's devouring heart in Dragon Abyss Dungeon and didn't speak of your existence. No wonder I went all out to protect you. Kid, you're really awesome. Murong Xiong clenched his fists tightly, all the power in his body seemed to explode out, his blood was boiling, the excitement was indescribable. Hualala. Hualala. Ancient Strong's body broke into pieces. He turned around and looked at the other Ancient Strong who was covered by a veil. His mouth was slightly opened, and a hoarse voice came out, "Save, save, save me, save." However, the Ancient Strong did not move. He did not even look up. It was as if everything that was happening around him had nothing to do with him at all. It was as if he was in the realm of divine tribes and only had his physical body left. The presbyter of God's tribes looked at him. Kneel in front of him. "My lord, make your move. Master, save them. Lord, kill that kid." Indifference. There was no sound at all. The presbyter of God's tribe was in despair. Seeing that there was only a little bit of Ancient Strong left, they also wanted to keep him alive, because he was the Ancient Strong. If he died, they wouldn't be able to escape punishment. They didn't even dare to think about the punishment given to them by the God's tribe. Kid, stop right now. God's tribe will pretend like nothing happened. You're in a hurry to stop right now. God's tribe, you can't afford to offend him. Stop. A few of the presbyter of God's tribe said in a low voice, if you offend the God's tribe, there's only one outcome for you, and that is death. If you stop now, I can do it in front of you and nothing will happen to me. Long Fei laughed. God's tribe? I'm sorry. Your God's tribe has long provoked me. If you don't do it, I, your father, will never rest. The few elders' eyes narrowed. No one had ever dared to speak like that. No one dared to openly provoke God's tribe. No one. One of the elders said solemnly, Brat, who exactly are you? Do you know the consequences of your words? Even if it's your entire clan, anyone who has even the slightest bit of relationship with you would not be able to escape death. Long Fei smirked, and said, Listen well for this old man. The entire audience was stunned. Everyone looked at Long Fei. Li Yuanba also looked at Long Fei. The heavenly spirit also looked at Long Fei. Aoya looked at Long Fei as well. Murong Xiong faced Long Fei, and smiled. Xiao Bai, Ice and Fire, Elder Swordsman, Senior Mie, Queen of Blood Moon. Everyone looked at Long Fei. At this moment, Long Fei was like a sovereign of the world. My name is Long Fei. Long Fei's eyes were fixed on a spot, every word was filled with tyrannical power, as though it carried an endless amount of killing intent. His voice was not loud, but it resounded throughout the entire God's design attic. Presbyter of God's tribe was startled, and couldn't react for a moment. Long Fei? What Long Fei? What is Long Fei? Suddenly, they seemed to have thought of something. Zhong Xian's eyes darkened. The faces of the elders of the God's tribe stared at Long Fei as if they were facing a great enemy, and said solemnly, You are Long Fei? That Long Fei who broke through the 9th level of heaven, who was killed by Emperor Xian several times and was still alive even after the western regions was swallowed up by the black hole after it collapsed. You are the brat that the dragon race and Mu clan combined? Long Fei smiled faintly and said, You remember now? As soon as he finished, Long Fei's pupils suddenly tensed up. An incomparably strong killing intent spread throughout the sky. Suddenly, the wind began to blow, the clouds began to surge, and the color of the sky and earth changed. In an instant, killing intent filled every corner of the God's design attic. It was as if all living creatures were trembling. Even every tree and blade of grass seemed to be trembling. His mind felt as if it had fallen into hell. Cold. Infinite coldness. He crushed the entire audience so hard that he couldn't even breathe. Long Fei's pupils tightened as he thought in his heart, what a strong killing intent. It was also at this moment. A clear sound of footsteps came out. Ancient Strong, who had not moved at all like a Buddha, slowly walked out. Presbyter of God's tribe was shocked. He revealed an excited expression and wanted to say a few words of praise, but he couldn't say a word, and his vocal cords seemed to be stuck. He stopped 3 meters away from Long Fei and asked indifferently, Tell me, what was your name just now? His voice was also very calm. There was no pressure, no powerful aura, just like an ordinary sentence. However, Long Fei was 100% sure that Tian's killing intent was released from his body. Very strong. So strong that Long Fei had never seen one in the universal realm before, and he felt that they were even stronger than the Emperor Xian. Of course, he had never seen the true power of the Emperor Xian before. Facing Powerhouse, Long Fei had never been one to back down. Life only has one sentence, do not submit, just do it. Long Fei said firmly, Long Fei. The Ancient Strong asked again, the descendants of the dragon race? Long Fei said, that's right. Ancient Strong said, according to Emperor Xian, you are the reincarnation of the first dragon of ancient world. Head dragon, the first dragon of ancient world. He was not born from the ancient world, but was naturally born from himself, and relied on his own strength to cultivate into a dragon. He was also the #1 powerhouse in the ancient times. He created a dragon clan with one hand. However, afterwards, he was too mischievous, and was invaded by the evil spirits of the other realms, angering a mighty powerhouse, and thus was directly suppressed by the repression of boundary stones. Long Fei's memories had yet to be restored, and he had forgotten many things from the past. However, even if his memory had recovered, even if he hadn't forgotten what had happened in the past, he would never admit that he was the reincarnation of some powerhouse. He was him. He was Long Fei. Long Fei said, "I don't know what dragon it is, I am me, I am Long Fei, and I am not the reincarnation of any powerhouse. Be someone else." It was not Long Fei's style. He had to do it himself. Even if it was the reincarnation of a certain powerhouse, Long Fei would never let that powerhouse take over his body. He would only take over that powerhouse. Heh. Ancient Strong smiled lightly. The smile was very strange. His eyes became cold as he said, "Back then, he also said something like that. It looks like you really are the reincarnation of the first dragon. I didn't expect this. I really didn't expect this. I really didn't expect to meet you here. Maybe you don't remember me, but I've never forgotten you." While they were talking, he removed the veil covering his head, revealing a face that was scarred like a giant centipede. The scar extended from between his eyebrows and went straight through his mouth. It just sat there on his face. It looked extremely horrifying. Many people looked at it and felt their hearts tremble. They didn't dare to look at it again. Scarman sneered, "Remember now? How many years have I had this face, thanks to you? I don't know, I've been looking for. The entire time I was waiting, I knew that the repression of boundary stones couldn't take your life. You aren't a person who accepts your fate. I knew that one day you would definitely come back. The second time. Today. You finally appeared. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha." Suddenly, he started to laugh maniacally. The wind screamed, and the land quaked. God's design attic began to crack. Just this laugh alone, Secret World was unable to take it anymore. The refining Chief Master S that those sects had brought with them rolled on the ground with their hands over their ears, crying out miserably in pain. Ah! Ah! Some people directly bled to death. "Who is he?" Qingyi couldn't help but ask. Li Yuanba did not say anything. All the veins in his body bulged and he clenched his fists tightly, like a leopard that was about to take action. He was like a leopard facing a great enemy. The moment that person moved, he would immediately charge out. The same goes for Sky Spirit and Oya. His entire body tensed up. They did not know what had happened in the past, nor did they know who this Scarman was, but the aura on his body told them that this person was extremely dangerous. It was even more dangerous than the powerhouse that controlled the power of ancient inheritance. Long Fei said faintly, "Although I am not a dragon, looking at your appearance, you have already determined that I am a dragon. All right, just treat me as a dragon then." And then? Not at all. On the contrary. However, Long Fei was excited in his heart. This boss was even stronger than the boss in the sky that was still in the process of dying. Moreover, the two bosses were of a completely different level. This boss was much stronger. He calculated in his heart. Can the mini black holes suck him to death? What if it doesn't die? I don't have anything else to rely on. Long Fei's heart tensed up, thinking of the system's intelligent sister. He could not help but call out, "System girl, what weakness does he have?" The little sister was still curled up in her lollis, sleeping quietly. She had no intention of waking up. Long Fei muttered, and said, "You've already slept for so long, are you still not awake?" The intellectual brain system could help him calculate everything. But now, the little sister was in a deep sleep, so she had no way to rely on him. If he couldn't rely on others, then he could only rely on himself. Long Fei stared at Scarman. Scarman smiled lightly, and said sinisterly, "Then, I will kill you." As soon as the word dead fell, the space around Long Fei suddenly shattered. The two elders of the Xiao Yaro City S in the space were also instantly crushed into pools of blood. The corner of Long Fei's eyes twitched. Scarman chuckled, "Don't worry, I won't let you die so comfortably. I will let you die slowly, woo-ha-ha. In another place. At the entrance of God's design city. Holy *T. I told you. We should have done it earlier. The Wild King held the God's design token in his hand and walked to the entrance with a smug face. He placed the God's design token on top of it and said, "Can you let me in now?" Young Taoist clasped his hands together. What a sin. In the distance. 2 blacksmiths fell to the ground. Kwong Wang disdainfully said, "What a sin. You're not a monk, you're a Taoist. What are you guilty of? Let's go. We still don't know what's happened to our boss. Let's find our boss first, then we can destroy this city." The Wild King rubbed the bridge of his nose, showing that he was in a bad mood. It was unclear how much time had passed. Hatred did not disappear with the passing of time, but was instead like wine. The more time passed, the deeper his memories became. It was unclear how much time had passed. Hatred did not disappear with the passing of time, but was instead like wine. The more time passed, the deeper his memories became. The humiliation of that year was something that he would remember forever. It was all for the sake of being able to take revenge one day. This time. He originally only wanted to have a simple look at Universal Realm and didn't have any other thoughts. There was no one worthy of him taking action in a place like the Universal Realm. Even if the ancient artifact forging powerhouse was suppressed by Long Fei and they were about to die, he did not want to save them. Everything in the world had nothing to do with him. However, when he found out about Long Fei, when he thought of what the Emperor Xian had said to him, the hatred in his heart exploded like liquor that had been sealed for hundreds of millions of years. His eyes were cold. With excitement. He looked at Long Fei and said, "The time has finally come for me. I will slowly play with you until you die." Ha ha ha. As soon as he finished, he flicked his finger. Buzz. A sharp light flashed from the tip of his finger, and the Scar Man laughed. "Let me punch a hole in your body first." Hee hee. It was extremely interesting. The power revolved back and forth on his fingertip. It looked like an ordinary power, but, however, it was like a laser cannon. As long as it was fired, it would destroy the world. Many years ago, I was able to leave a scar on your face. That was because I taught you a lesson and made you remember this. Who would have thought that after all these years, your memory did not improve at all? Back then, you weren't my opponent. Do you still think you're my opponent now? Long Fei was not afraid. On his body, other than the power of Dao Tai, there was also a power of eternity that he did not control very well. This power. Not a joke. Let alone a boss like the Scar Man, even if the strongest Emperor Xian was in front of him, he wouldn't reveal any fear. Scar Man gritted his teeth and said in a heavy voice, "Your mouth hasn't changed at all, then let me punch a hole in it first." Buzz. With a move of his fingertips, he shot towards Long Fei. Long Fei frowned. The idea moved. Dao Tai. Before he had even released his power of Dao Tai, he felt a figure blocking his front. The figure was huge, over 2 meters tall. It was big and the muscles on its body bulged out like granite. Naked to the waist. The power released from his body was purely physical. Powerful. His aura was abnormally strong. Long Fei's eyes tensed up. King Kong, Li Yuanba. Boom. Li Yuanba's body descended and punched towards the incoming laser. Pure physical power. There was nothing flashy about it. That punch. Bang. Rumble. When the laser exploded, the space fluctuated and waves of space rippled outwards, completely unable to resist it. The entire audience was stunned. Li Yuanba turned around and naively said, "Boss, that time, I didn't recognize you, He was frustrated himself. That time, he did not recognize Long Fei, and this whole year, he had been very upset. He wanted nothing more than to retreat, and he would never be able to recognize Long Fei again. Long Fei laughed, "I'm fine. Actually, I'm not too sure either that you're my King Kong, my memories." Li Yuanba clenched both his fists and said, "I know, I will definitely grind that dog Emperor Xian to pieces." It was also at this time. Scar Man slowly stopped. The elders of the gods' tribe all secretly trembled. King Kong, Holy King Kong Li Yuanba. He. It's him, it's really him. He's actually in God's design attic. What a good God's design craftsman. You actually dare to hide a felon from your God's tribe. Just this point is enough to turn your God's design attic into ashes. Very arrogant. But their hearts were also filled with fear. The surrounding clan-level powerhouses all whispered, "Is he the great Vaja, the fierce man who killed all of Violet Gold Godguard's men? The second most wanted felon in God's tribe. He is the Holy King Kong. That means that the person called Long Fei is really, oh my God, no wonder he is God's tribe's #1 wanted criminal. The King Kong is here. What about the other King Kong? Legend has it that the 8th King Kong is the protector of the dragon race and is the 8 great heaven pillars that support the ancient world. The Holy King Kong is the leader and the Holy King Kong is the tail." For a moment, there was panic. On the God's tribe's side, the elders' expression changed. Listening to these discussions, their hearts began to pound. Ever since Li Yuanba left the ancient world, there had been many legends of King Kong. Even though they had been chasing and killing all over the place, they had never tried to kill King Kong. The power of King Kong caused them to tremble in fear. Has the news arrived? Did the shrine send anyone to support us? Hurry up. If we catch those two, we'll be rich. At this time, Scarman looked coldly at Li Yuanba, the corners of his mouth slightly hooked up, and said, 8 King Kong? 8 heaven pillar? Your ancient world? Ha ha ha. How ridiculous. Scarman's finger moved again as he channeled the power at the tip of his finger, saying indifferently, ancient world is a mother world, and it reproduces to the mother plane of existence. Its power is not something that a few heaven pillar can support, you know. That year, in his era, there were no 8 great heaven pillar, no 8 King Kong, nor were there any guardians of the dragon race. At the time in Long family, the #1 family, did not need any guardians at all. There was no such thing as the 8 heaven pillar. However, the ancient world was so big that it was unimaginable. Even though the Scarman was the most ancient group of powerhouses, he still did not completely understand the ancient world. He only knew that the ancient world was a matriarchal plane, reproducing to everything. Just like the mother plane. Li Yuanba turned and stood in front of Long Fei to protect him. Long Fei secretly thought, be careful. At the same time, Long Fei was controlling the Yang soul, slowing down the speed of death of the ancient artifact forging powerhouse. Li Yuanba nodded heavily and said, I will. Scarman's lips curled up, die. With a move of his 5 fingers, the power of the ancient world erupted. 5 rays of light shot out from his fingertips, directly locking Li Yuanba's entire body in place. Li Yuanba was not afraid, and his arms sank down, Wang. His strength had turned into an astral form. An enormous defensive power was released out of nowhere. However, at this moment, a sword struck out. Break. 5 laser beams were pierced through. The sword hummed. A sword floated in mid-air, a lady in tight robes slowly descended. Her expression was as though a Valkyrie had descended. It was incomparably cool. Sword Force King Kong, AOYA. Everyone was tongue-tied as they looked up at the sky. Everyone was looking at her. However, she was looking at a person. A sword to shake the heavens. A sword to shake the heavens. All the swords in God's design attic were trembling and releasing booming sounds. It was not because of how strong that sword was, it was because that sword was extremely weak. Any sword in the God's design attic was stronger than it, but she was the leader of all the 10,000 swords. The 10,000 swords groaned and bowed. Because the sword intent of the person who used this sword, its ancient profoundness was incomparable. Aoya landed. Everyone looked at her. The only person she looked at was Long Fei. Long Fei was also looking at him and his heart thumped for a moment. It was as if he had broken through his memory, and all sorts of obscure memory fragments appeared in his mind. Within the academy, Oya was a teacher. Long Fei passed on to her the unique skill of the sword lady. The scenes appeared one after another. Long Fei's heart secretly tensed up. Their gazes met. Aoya took a step forward and stood in front of Long Fei. The two of them looked at each other for a few seconds. Without saying a word, Aoya directly threw herself into Long Fei's embrace. Long Fei hugged onto it tightly. His heart raced. Plop, plop. Hearing Long Fei's heartbeat, Aoya said softly, "Your heart is beating really fast." Long Fei said, "You wear so little, your chest is so big, and it's pressing down on my body. If my heart doesn't beat fast, then I wouldn't be normal." Although she was dressed in tight clothes, she did not have a lot of clothes on her body. She was just like the holy artifact female hero from the movies. Whether it was her clothes or her looks, they were both far better than the mysterious female hero. Especially the chest. It could only be described with one word. Domineering. With such a woman in your arms, who wouldn't feel their heart beating faster? No man can control it. Oya said softly, "Scoundrel." As he said scoundrel, his body was even more tightly locked within Long Fei's embrace, like a little kitten that was unceasingly burrowing into his embrace. She had longed for this moment for a long time. After being in the ancient world for 100 years, he was constantly thinking about Long Fei, and constantly thought about staying in Long Fei's embrace. He did nothing, and calmly leaned on her. Now, this simple wish had finally been fulfilled. She quietly laid in Long Fei's embrace, enjoying the sweetest time of her life. At this moment, there was nothing in her world, only Long Fei. Li Yuanba did not turn back. He was completely on guard against Scarman. No matter what happened after that, he would never look back. He was Long Fei's guardian diamond. Sword Force King Kong. Another King Kong has appeared. Oh my god, won't 8 King Kong really all appear? She's so beautiful. I've never seen such a beautiful woman before. She's just like an immortal. Just looking at her makes me feel like I'm blaspheming her. But she threw herself into the arms of another man. My heart ached. It feels so bad. Oya was beautiful. She was very pretty and straightforward. She didn't need any decorations, just that simple and efficient. Furthermore, she was never shy. If she liked someone, then she liked them. She wanted to express her love for him, but when she walked to Long Fei's side, she did not even bother to look at the people around her, and directly hugged him. It was direct. This was her, like a sword. Presbyter of God's tribe's brows tightened. They couldn't even withstand a single King Kong. If it wasn't for the presence of another ancient strong, they would have already been dead by now. They probably only needed to run for their lives. And now another King Kong. Yi Zichen's heart once again tightened. The elders' faces were no longer as arrogant as before. They looked at each other and only thought of how to get reinforcements here quickly. Scarman glanced at Aoya and smiled with interest. Not bad, this is the first time I have seen someone who can cultivate the way of the sword to such a level. The first of the 10,000 swords. What a pity, what a pity. Scarman's smile turned cold. It's a pity that I don't have any interest in women anymore. If not, you would have been able to live for a few more days. Aoya lightly came out of Long Fei's embrace, turned around and walked to the Great Vaja's side, then said, Yuan Ba, do you want to go up or should I? Li Yuanba smiled lightly and said, there's no rush. There's still one more that hasn't come out yet. Aoya was startled. Is there anyone else who has left the ancient world? Li Yuanba laughed. Aoya retracted the sword intent on her body, quietly looked at Scarman, and said, if you have the ability, then display it. Scarman's eyes turned sinister. Boom. In the blink of an eye, an extremely powerful force exploded from within his body. The laser light covered his entire body as a wolf slowly floated up. Its 2 dark red wolf eyes stared at him and let out a roar. Wolf break. Whoosh. The wolf shadow impulsively pounced towards the two of them. Li Yuanba did not move. Oya did not move. The 2 King Kong felt as if they were ignoring Scarman. Long Fei also did not move. He was still controlling the ancient artifact forging powerhouse's blood volume, because this was his trump card. If he could not endure it, he could immediately upgrade it to replace everything else. This was the same as having another chance to revive in one place. Long Fei would not easily use it. Moreover, this Scar Man was constantly increasing his own strength, but these forces were not his strongest forces at all. They had lived for hundreds of millions of years. How could such an old monster possess such power? He showed his strength as if it were for a 3-year-old. Vaja. Aoya didn't display her strongest power, but compared to the Scar Man, even Long Fei was not sure. How much did his 100 years of experience, did his memory of the seal improve? How strong was the ancient world? All of this was unknown to Long Fei. It would be best if Kong Kim could win. If he couldn't, he also had to fight. Long Fei was extremely careful. He did not want his memory to be sealed by the seal again, nor did he want to reincarnate or be reborn. He did not want his fate to be controlled again. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The laser wolf rushed out, incomparably vicious. Li Yuanba smiled lightly. Tianling, it's your turn. Heh heh. A sinister, terrifying laugh rang out. It was as if the voice had come from hell itself. The hearts of everyone present immediately turned cold, and the temperature around them plummeted. A youth that looked like an evil child walked out. With every step he took, the small flowers and grass on the ground instantly withered, and the bluestone floor turned into dust. Seems so. He was death. He would die if he touched anything in the world. His appearance caused everyone's eyes to narrow. It seemed like he was walking very slowly, but in the blink of an eye, the heavenly spirit was standing right in front of Li Yuanba and Aoya. He let out a deep shout. The flames burst out of his body. With an evil smile, he said, "It's my turn." Rumble, rumble, rumble. The flames surged, the wolf shadow instantly shattered, a huge death shockwave was released, the presbyter of God's tribes instantly tumbled on the ground. He was in an extremely sorry state. Presbyter of God's tribe rolled on the ground. Presbyter of God's tribe rolled on the ground. Those sect-level refiners were directly sent flying. For a moment, the entire sky was filled with people. One by one, their bodies began to slowly shrivel under the flames of death. The holy source on his body was sucked dry. Bang, bang, bang. One by one, they fell down. Just like hail. After falling to the ground, these sect-level artificers didn't even have the time to get up before their faces turned sinister and their pupils dimmed. They wanted to let out terrible screams of pain. However, his body stiffened and was quickly petrified. In the end, they created strange shapes one after another. A cool breeze blew past. Hualala, hualala, hualala. All of them were reduced to powder. The presbyter of God's tribes were slightly better. Their cultivations were much stronger than the sect powerhouses and they weren't blasted flying, but their bodies were also severely injured, and their minds were like scythes that could descend at any time. This feeling was too unbearable. In a short moment, the 10,000 refining masters of the sects had all died. Not a single one remained. The crowded square suddenly became spacious and empty. The blow from the 10,000 mountains from the sky spirit was a complete mess. However, Scar Man did not even move. When the death aura rushed towards him, it directly broke apart. It was also because of this that presbyter of God's tribe was able to escape from his clutches. Otherwise, it would be hard for them to escape death even if their cultivation was strong. The heavenly spirit patted his hands, turned around and looked at Long Fei, and giggled, saying, "Boss, my way of appearing on stage to show off, isn't it? Hee hee. Although it is not as eye-catching as the violet gold godguard that brother Yuan Ba killed, it is not bad, hey." In front of Long Fei, he looked just like a child. The heavenly spirit was brought out by Long Fei from the underworld. His body was extremely special. Not a human, not a ghost, not a demon, not a demon. However, he was born in the underworld, so he had an incomparably strong power of death. Long Fei looked at him and said, putting on airs. The celestial spirit smiled even more happily, "Hey." On the God's tribe's side, not to mention arrogant faces, every one of them had now become extremely afraid. They hid behind Scar Man and trembled, not even daring to breathe. They were afraid that if the sky spirit moved again, they would understand their little lives. The elders of the God's Design Attic were all dumbstruck. The appearance of the three Vajra was like the appearance of a god. Moreover, what was even more unbearable was that these three gods called each other Big Brother Long Fei. Whitebrow swallowed a huge mouthful of saliva, looked at Long Fei, and once again, rejoiced in his heart. Too strong. With just an aura, he annihilated so many sects' powerhouses. There's no lack of peak overlord powerhouse among these powerhouse. They're all gone just like that. Oh my god, is there a limit to the realm of the martial arts training? I have never seen such a scene before. What kind of realm is this exactly? If the 3 King Kong are so strong, if the 8 King Kong were to gather all of them, what realm would they be at? At first, I was worried that I would not live past today, but now, I am worried that those Presbyter of God's tribes might not be able to survive anymore. After killing so many God's tribe dogs, will the God's tribe destroy our God's Design Attic? With Master Ancestor here, why would I be afraid of birds? So what if I am in God's tribe? So what if it was the Emperor Xian? He makes us unhappy, and we make him even more unhappy. The strength displayed by the 3 great Vajra was too ferocious. He was completely an existence of the divine immortal stage. After the sky spirit descended, Scarman smiled faintly and said, 3 King Kong? Ha ha ha. The guardian of the Long family? Ha ha ha. The heaven pillar that supports the ancient world? Ha ha ha. Without saying a word, he laughed heartily. Tianling was not happy and directly scolded, I'm laughing at your sister. The Scarman's smile faded, his eyes turned sinister as he said solemnly, a group of ignorant fools, what kind of heaven pillar are you? You think you're strong? Do you think that your little strength can protect the Long family? You still want to support the ancient world? Today, I will let you all know the power of the ancient world. Boom. His strength exploded. Crack, God's Design Attic's surroundings instantly cracked, and cracks continuously flew out. Moreover, one by one, the floating mountains began to sink down. The law energy lost its balance. The secret world belonged to a small plane and had its own independent law. However, compared to the large plane, the laws of the realm of the secret world were a little weaker. But no matter how weak they were, not everyone could mess up their laws, much less lose balance with their power of law. The power of the Scarman was beyond imagination. Damn. It exploded. F***ck your grandma, I want to see what you can explode with. The first thing that came out of her displeasure was that she was about to charge forward. However, this secret world won't be able to withstand a single person's strength. If we were to use our power again, this secret world will be directly destroyed, at that time. We're not afraid, but what about the people here? Where's boss? Li Yuanbar was worried that Long Fei would be threatened a little. Aoya nodded. The King Kong is right. I'll break through the sky. You two take him into the void. As soon as he finished, Aoya's sword struck out. The long sword cut through the air heavily. Hualala. The sky shattered and the initially blue sky turned pitch black. The entire God's Design Attic was thrown into chaos. Li Yuanbar's body slightly sank, his body leaned forward, and then bang, it charged forward like a ferocious beast. He landed in front of Scarman and wrapped his arms around her. He suddenly hugged the Scarman. Scarman sneered, stared at Li Yuanbar and said, your fist does have some power, but just this kind of power? Too weak. The lasers on his body burst out. The sky spirit also fell down, and its eyes turned malevolent. Spirit integration. Buzz. The spirit energy wrapped around Li Yuanbar's body, and Li Yuanbar's body immediately turned into a cage, binding Scarman within. The space between Scarman's eyebrows tightened, combining powers. Just as he was about to break through, the sky spirit suddenly shouted, rise. Li Yuanbar's legs grew wide as he brought Scarman up into the air. He directly dashed into the void. Aoya looked at Long Fei and said, wait for me. The long sword fell. The ruptured sky was sewn up again. All of this happened very quickly, and in just a few seconds, it caused everyone to be dazzled. After the four of them left God's Design Attic, The entire secret world calmed down, and the entire place became quiet. The deities left, returning to peace. However, a presbyter of God's tribe suddenly let out a sound of excitement. Ha ha ha. It's here, it's here. The three King Kong left and brought Scarman to another world to fight. The three King Kong left and brought Scarman to another world to fight. What was the result? I don't know. This was also something that Long Fei couldn't care less about right now. Even if he wanted to, he wouldn't be able to. Seeing them leave, Long Fei's heart trembled. They're going to fight to the outer space? The god's design attic regained its calm. Long Fei looked at the ancient artifact forging powerhouse. He really wanted to reap his fate, and he thought to himself, Scarman has left, I'll blast you, this boss, to death. However, at this moment, a few presbyter of God's tribe were sure that the three Vaja had left. Once again, they revealed their arrogant faces and shouted out, Men, surround this brat. God's tribe guards quickly surrounded Long Fei. Presbyter of God's tribe laughed excitedly. I found you all over the place, I got it effortlessly. Master Emperor Xian has always wanted to find you, even with the 10,000 Worlds Hunt Squad, he wasn't able to kill you. I didn't expect to meet you here, it really is lucky. Ha ha ha. Long Fei, did you obediently surrender yourself? Or do you want us to take action? Who is Long Fei? Emperor Xian called out the people he wanted to capture. He was the #1 wanted criminal in the God's tribe, and one that the Emperor Xian had personally promised to take. Whoever caught Long Fei or killed him would receive a large amount of rewards. The power of ancient inheritance. Countless powerhouse wanted to find Long Fei's head, but they couldn't find it. It was right in front of their eyes, so how could they let it go? Long Fei was startled, and asked, Are you sure? Presbyter of God's tribe laughed coldly. You bastard, do you think you can still act so arrogantly? The power you displayed just now was only that of the refining force, and the reason why this ancient strong lost was because the things you refined were rather powerful, but if King Kong is not here, we can't compete with crafting. To compete in martial arts? Kid, you should be more honest. This way, I will make you suffer less. The presbyter of God's tribe laughed. To them, Long Fei was a great gift. He had to take them down. Who dares to touch him? The first thing. A woman's voice sounded. Not Long Fei's woman, but Li Yuanbar's woman. Qingyi walked out and landed beside Long Fei to protect him. She stared at the presbyter of God's tribe and coldly said, If I were you, I would leave with my tail between my legs right now. Qingyi's appearance caused presbyter of God's tribe to shudder. Qingyi, you, God's tribe traitor, are still alive. Traitor, you think you can protect him? Qingyi, you still have a choice. Don't let me kill you again when the time comes. Long Fei was also startled. He did not expect Qingyi to actually come out and protect him, and thought to himself, seems like Li Yuanbar taught her quite well, huh? It was also at this time. Everyone from God's design attic rushed forward, protect the ancestor. Bai Mai rushed forward with his men, and took out all of the holy artifacts. Their martial prowess was indeed not strong. But each of them held a few holy artifact in their hands. If you can't beat them, they can just smash you to death with their holy artifact. The presbyter of God's tribe trembled, and said coldly, Seems like your God's design attic is truly courting death, fighting with my God's tribe. Abbot Whitebrow shouted, What about your God's tribe? If you dare hurt even a single hair of the ancestor today, this old man will fight you to the death. At first, Bai Mai looked down on Long Fei. He felt regret for his past self. Now that he had the chance to vote for it, wouldn't he have to seize this opportunity? If they missed it this time, then there really wouldn't be any God's design attic left in this world. Powerhouse of God's tribe was not scared just because Abbot Whitebrow had stepped forward, but he was even more disdainful. He glanced at the old and weak God's design attic and sneered, There is one who isn't afraid of death. Fight with the God's tribe. Very good. I want to see how many are not afraid of death today. All of you, come out. As soon as he finished, Xiao Yarou Xiong took a step out of the space, standing in front of that presbyter of God's tribe, and said, And me. Hee hee. Chuckling softly, the space suddenly tightened, directly binding the elder. The elder formed a seal with his hands and unleashed his power. Boom. He spat out a mouthful of blood, but it also broke the spatial shackles, causing him to stagger backwards, staring at Murong Xiong, and said, Murong Xiong, count you in. Don't leave today if you dare. Murong Xiong laughed. If I don't leave, then you will die. Presbyter of God's tribe squinted. With a light wave of his hand, the powerhouse walked out. All of a sudden, number of people who could safely crush God's tribe in the morning. The God's tribe guards who were surrounding Long Fei were immediately blocked, and were forced back step by step. Presbyter of God's tribe said, a traitor to the God's tribe, a waste who only knows how to forge artifacts, and a Xiao Yarrow city. Very good, very good. Bam. On another side of God's design attic, he kicked the door and flew out. And lousy. Xiao Bai transformed into the White Wolf King and was the first to rush out. The people of God's tribe were stunned once again, remnants of the western regions' escape. Ice and fire came out. Tan De Pao walked out. Elder Swordsman, Tang Long, Senior Mie, Su Su, Lan Mai, Queen of Blood Moon. Everyone came out. Long Fei couldn't help but become excited as he looked at them. Ha ha ha. It's all here, it's all here. Boss. A loud sound was heard. This time, they directly surrounded the God's tribe and forced them together. There was no fear on Presbyter of God's tribe's face as he coldly said, everyone is here, just nice, we can catch them all in one fell swoop. None of you can leave today. Long Fei, today is the day of your death. Not waiting for him to finish. Suddenly, his throat was cut and blood spurted out. The other presbyter of God's tribe's eyes narrowed and immediately shouted, there's an assassin. Just as he shouted out, his neck also ruptured. Ah! 3 of the elders suddenly died. Even Murong Xiong was secretly shocked, he could not clearly see what had happened. The 3 Yi My sisters walked out, looked at Long Fei and said, Lord Night King. Long Fei said, beautiful. After 1 year, my assassination skill has improved a lot. 3 of the presbyter of God's tribe died instantly, the rest of the people's faces darkened, an elder said heavily, today, none of you will be able to escape. Shrine has already sent Powerhouse over. All of you must die. Ha ha ha. All of you will die. None of you will be able to escape. Murong Xiong's gaze tightened and his heart skipped a beat, if Shrine really sends someone. An unrivaled existence in the God's tribe. The powerhouses sent out by the Shrine were all very powerful. If they knew that Long Fei was here, they would have definitely sent out their strongest warriors. This place was dangerous. The presbyter of God's tribe said coldly, just you wait. They will be here soon. Let's see how you can continue being so arrogant then. At this moment, in the sky, a young Taoist suddenly flew down. The young Taoist brought along his own buff. He appeared in midair, saw Long Fei and walked down step by step. Every step he took, a symbol would appear under his feet. The young Taoist brought along his own buff. He appeared in midair, saw Long Fei and walked down step by step. Every step he took, a symbol would appear under his feet. A rune from a immortal Taoist scriptures. Just like a flight of stairs, the runes appeared as soon as his feet touched the ground. Descending from the sky. Everyone looked up in shock. Who is that child? What is that golden symbol beneath his feet? Is it a rune? Wasn't the rune supposed to be carved on the seal? Why did it appear at his feet? Too cool. Is it the powerhouse that has come to support us? The aura on his body is so special. Presbyter of God's tribe looked up and muttered in their hearts, have you seen him before? Who is this kid? Is it one of the great powerhouses? Or is he a powerhouse from ancient world? The few elders shook their heads, indicating that they had never seen it before. However, one of the clan elders said, look at the expressions on Murong Xiong and the others, it seems like they do not know each other. Since they do not know each other, it means that he is one of us. You're right. The Emperor Xian broke open many seals in the ancient world, so he might be one of the great powerhouses thinking of this. All the powerhouse of God's tribe burst with confidence. One of them said, Did you see that? Our reinforcements have arrived. Do you see his strength? You dregs aren't even enough. Ha ha ha. Murong Xiong's eyes secretly tightened, and said solemnly, everyone be careful. He couldn't feel the power from young Taoist's body, and it was precisely because of this that caused everyone to be cautious, so this seemingly childlike person was not simple. In that instant, the idea sent the order. He could die, but Long Fei definitely could not. Long Fei was the lifeblood of the Mu clan. If anything happened to him, the old man would probably make him unable to take care of himself. The two elders of the Xiao Yarrow city immediately gathered around Long Fei. Elder Swordsman said in a deep voice, his aura. The aura being released from his body is not from the universal realm, so there is only one possibility, he is from the ancient world. Are the reinforcements from God's tribe here? Senior Mie looked at Tang Long and said, Tang Long, didn't you say that you have an innate ability to sense demons? The ferocious men from the ancient world are more or less devilish. Do they have it on them? Tang Long shook his head. I can't sense it. Senior Mie was startled. And there is also an aura that you, the Devil Slayer Tang clan, cannot sense. This is too strange. The Tang clan had a natural advantage over Qi sensing. As long as there was any trace of demonic energy in his body, he wouldn't be able to escape detection. But it was useless now. Seeing Murong Xiong being so nervous, many of the elders in the God's tribe became even more excited, and their hearts confirmed that the young Taoist was their reinforcement. Moreover, this reinforcement made Murong Xiong feel like he was facing a great enemy. It must be very strong. Presbyter of God's tribe began to clamor, are you afraid? Trembling? If the shrine randomly sends out a powerhouse, all of you will kneel and beg for mercy. Murong Xiong, are you still arrogant? Do you dare to fight against God's tribe with just your disorderly group of people? You're courting death. Ha ha ha. Long Fei, obediently kneel on the ground and kowtow, this is your only way out. Once this powerhouse descends, it will be time for you to die. Ha ha ha. The remaining few presbyter of God's tribe were incomparably savage. Long Fei gently smiled from the corner of his mouth, but did not say much as he slowly walked forward. Murong Xiong's brows tightened, and said, Xiao Fei, don't go out. The elder swordsman also followed, Brat, don't go out. That child's strength is too strange, don't rashly go near him. Xiao Bai and Bing Hua followed behind Long Fei from the left and right. They did not say anything, and no matter what Long Fei did, they would just follow him. It could block bullets for Long Fei at any time. Long Fei said lightly, don't worry. I've been missing for a year. Are you all curious about what happened to me during that year? What have I done this year? You will know soon enough. Long Fei walked out of the crowd. Those presbyter of God's tribe were even more excited, and they clamored, are you afraid now? Get out of here and kneel down. Kneel. The dragon race is being stepped on by our God's tribe. Who the hell are you? You still want to jump? Kneel down now. Zhuosha knelt down. He knelt down. He was incomparably arrogant and wild. Long Fei was very unhappy. He said indifferently, you like having people kneel for you, right? Presbyter of God's tribe sneered, this is what you common people should do. In your world, do you know why? Because we are the God's tribe, and the God's tribe is the God of your mortal world. God. Long Fei sneered and said, so what if you're a god? You are gods. Then I shall be the ancestor of the gods. Presbyter of God's tribe coldly snorted, you're still being so arrogant at this point of time. Brat, you're about to die. And then, the presbyter of God's tribe looked at the young Taoist that was about to land on the ground and said, Master, here's the brat from Long family. Kill him. Young Taoist was stunned. Long Fei said coldly, kill him. Kill him. The presbyter of God's tribe mocked, who are you ordering? How could a trash like you order the ancient world around? Long Fei, you should be prepared to die. Before he could finish, young Taoist gave a light "oh." Then he raised his gaze, glanced at the presbyter of God's tribe, and coldly said, explode. Bam! A loud explosion resounded. Presbyter of God's tribe's head exploded open as half of his body fell to the ground. Suddenly, Everyone was shocked. The elders and guards of God's tribe were all feeling their heads twist, as if they could not turn around. They looked at the half of their bodies lying in a pool of blood, then looked at young Taoist. An elder said with a heavy voice, "My lord is killing him." He pointed at Long Fei. Long Fei said softly again, "Kill him." "Oh," young Taoist said softly again. And then, bam! Another presbyter of God's tribe fell to the ground. This time the people from God's tribe were all stunned. If the first time was by mistake, then now. This terrifying young Taoist in front of him was definitely one of Long Fei. Murong Xiong was also stunned. "This elder swordsman said, Brat, you know him?" Long Fei laughed and nodded, "I do." Seeing Long Fei coming forward, young Taoist also giggled, and said, "Senior brother." When the two words senior brother came out, all of them were stupefied. The hearts of the people from the God's tribe were trembling. All of them looked at young Taoist with their mouths agape, and their arrogance immediately extinguished. He couldn't be arrogant anymore. Not only were they unable to be arrogant, but they also felt as if they were surrounded by death. His anger was extinguished in an instant. His anger was extinguished in an instant. Two elders died in a row. What made them panic was that they didn't even know how they died. Young Taoist just said one word and they died. What was this called? If the person in front of him was a god, then who was this young Taoist in front of him? An existence that did not require much effort to destroy the mind. Terrifying. The rest of the God's tribe people were trembling inwardly. Long Fei said, "You like making people kneel, right? You like the feeling of being worshipped, right? Is your God's tribe a god? Now. You. All of them. All of you. This old man will kneel down." His voice was filled with rage. Long Fei also erupted all of a sudden. Both of his eyes flared with anger as they radiated with the vicious light of a Dao Tai. Those descendant of God's tribes looked at each other, their bodies trembling. Long Fei shouted, "Kneel!" Young Taoist's aura exploded. Wang. Plop. 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 One after another, they were unable to endure the pressure of the aura being released by Long Fei, and it was even more so when they were unable to endure the power being released by the pressure from the young Taoist. Their hearts felt like they were about to explode. Unwell. An indescribable pain. Dozens of people from the God's tribe all knelt in front of Long Fei. The kneecap took root, and firmly stuck itself into the ground. Many God's tribe people kneeled. This scene had never happened before for tens of thousands of years. Other than the Emperor Xian, the people of God's tribe would never kneel to anyone else. Not to mention a wanted man. This scene caused Murong Xiong to be incomparably excited. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha, God's tribe? God. Ha ha ha. How does it feel to kneel on the ground? Although it was just a little God's tribe character. However, their kneeling made everyone's heart tremble. Was Murong Xiong strong? Is Xiao Yarrow City strong? Even the God's tribe couldn't do anything to them when they controlled the power of the spatial inheritance, but, even so, they could not make so many God's tribe people kneel. Elder Swordsman was also excited. Ha ha ha. Good boy, ha ha ha. Gritting her teeth. His heart was excited. Long Fei had done what no one had done. Whether it was the disciples of the God's design attic, the people of Xiao Yarrow City, Xiao Bai, and the others, all of them had their blood boiling hot, because of Long Fei. This man was too domineering. Long Fei coldly snorted, and said, "Satisfying?" One of the presbyter of God's tribe's eyes twitched. He was extremely unhappy, and said with a heavy tone, "Brat, don't be arrogant, God's tribe's powerhouse is about to arrive, just you guys wait." Not waiting for them to finish. Bam! A head fell from the sky. He rolled in front of presbyter of God's tribe. Presbyter of God's tribe's eyes suddenly contracted. Grand Elder. The eyes of the disciples of the God's tribe also shook, and their bodies couldn't help but tremble. That head belonged to one of the clan elders of God's tribe. The blood was still steaming. Obviously, he had just died. After the head landed on the ground, a strong man fell down heavily. The corner of his mouth curled up and was filled with contempt as he said, Is that all? Or is he a supreme elder? F***ck, Elder Taishang is more or less the same. A lot of people have died outside. How boring. There's not a single person who can fight. The muscular man naturally spoke of the Savage King. Kwong Wang expressed his displeasure. However, hearing his words, an elder of the God's Design Attic said in shock, You said that all the reinforcements sent by the God's tribe, all of them, died outside of the God's Design Attic? The Savage King said, They're all dead. There wasn't a single one that was more powerful. Just now, I clearly sensed a few powerful auras. Why is it that there aren't any of them here? Have they left? His words were understated. It didn't matter much, but those who heard it were almost scared to the point of pooping. The reinforcements from God's tribe were all dead. Not long after those reinforcements arrived, all of them were killed before they could even enter the God's Design Attic. In other words, this sturdy man killed the God's tribe's reinforcements in a short amount of time. How strong was this? In Powerhouse of God's tribe, there is still another sovereign realm highest elder. This group of Powerhouse can sweep across the entire universal realm, but all of them were instantly killed. How terrifying this man was. At this time, Kwong Wang looked at Long Fei and said, Boss, your world isn't good, there's no one that can fight. They didn't want to let him off just like that. What was he called, Long Fei? Boss. What was the young Taoist called Long Fei just now? Senior brother. These two were suddenly extremely terrifying, but they were actually Long Fei's lackeys. Presbyter of God's tribe was paralyzed on the ground, his brain wasn't working enough. Murong Xiong was also dumbstruck, his heart feeling bitter. He thought to himself, I wanted to say that Xiao Yarrow City is my nephew's biggest backer, I didn't expect that. Xiao Yarrow City is not even a piece of scum. Elder Swordsman also looked at Long Fei with a stupefied face. It's only been a year since we last met, what in the world happened? This kid, just what kind of special fortuitous encounter did he have? Boss is mighty. The boss is domineering. Big brother Long Fei is so cool. Abbot Whitebrow secretly wiped away his sweat and rejoiced. I'm afraid this is the first time in my life that I've made the right choice. Huff. If I had the Ancestor Master as my backing, would the God's tribe even be able to touch my God's Design Attic? Senior brother, rest in peace. This God's Design Attic will definitely protect you. Long Fei looked at the Kwong Wang and said, Don't worry, you will definitely fight in the future. Kwong Wang clenched his fists in disbelief. However, since he came here with Long Fei, he had to go out and gain some experience. This world did not have Powerhouse, but he had clearly felt a few incomparably powerful ripples just now. Those few auras made him boil over with excitement. Long Fei walked forward and asked, Gods of the God's tribe, who is trembling now? Presbyter of God's tribe looked at Long Fei. Right now, he did not dare to be arrogant at all, and could only endure it and ask, Long Fei, what do you want? Long Fei said, I don't want anything. Many of the descendant of God's tribes slightly moved their bodies. Long Fei casually continued, Just now, all of you wanted me to die, so I'll let you die as well. Descendant of God's tribe's gaze turned cold, and did not wait for them to kowtow and beg for mercy. Long Fei said coldly, Kill. Young Taoist raised his gaze and chanted an incantation. Kwong Wang said impatiently, reciting the sutra of the transcendental scripture. How troublesome. I'll do it. He stepped forward and the aura on his body exploded out. Bam. Buzz. All of the descendant of God's tribes died from blood loss. Not a single one of them let out a blood-curdling scream, as they didn't even know how they died. Young Taoist clasped his hands. It's a sin, a sin. Kwong Wang said with disdain, Young Taoist, I think you're leaning towards the side of the Lord of Buddha more and more. It was also at this time. Long Fei raised his eyes, looked at the artifact forging ancient strong who only had a little bit of blood left, and smiled faintly. I never let you explode, it's really hard on you. All right. Now you can explode. The last bit of Yang Soul's power was released. The blood on his head instantly returned to zero. System beep. Ding. To control life and death, To keep the ancient artifact forging powerhouse in front of a trump card. To control life and death, to keep the ancient artifact forging powerhouse in front of a trump card. Kill-in and upgrading system. If he killed someone, he would be able to take in their level. If he leveled up, he would be revived on the spot. Long Fei was equivalent to having an extra life. This was also the reason why he had never blown him up. With young Taoist and Rampage by his side, Long Fei did not need to have any scruples. There were really not many people in Universal Realm that could fight against them. Ding. System notification. Congratulations to player Long Fei for killing refining demons. Do you wish to absorb them? Ding. Congratulations to player Long Fei for obtaining refining force. Congratulations to player Long Fei for obtaining the Black Lotus. Congratulations to player Long Fei for obtaining Devil's Battle Axe. The system sounded out a series of notifications. The things that dropped in the Universal Realm all reached the level of super artifact. However, these things did not enter Long Fei's eyes. After making a trip to the Hall of Eternal Life, he was no longer interested in anything that was dropped by the Universal Realm. Refining force. I have the refining techniques of the Horcrux's family. Your refining force is useless. Black Lotus. What I have suppressed is useless. Lord of all fiends. Long Fei's gaze at the Devil's Battle Axe trembled slightly. A. Weapon, Devil's Battle Axe weight, 1.08 million Jin material, Rainbow Stone destructive power, 10 stars description. This war device is an ancient war device. It is a rainbow divine stone of the Seal's myriad demons. Its battle axe has already been corroded, and its user has to endure the pain of being devoured by the myriad devils. This thing is pretty good. Long Fei was a little satisfied. If it was something refined from a refined demon, Long Fei would not even spare it a glance, but this axe was obviously not one. It has a great background. The rainbow divine stone of the Seal's myriad demons, the myriad demons of the primordial era, every single one of them was the existence of a super hegemon, and it could be said that every single one of them were great devils that had been massacred by tens of thousands or even millions of people. God Shifeng Seal, when the magic is released, ordinary people cannot use it. Long Fei looked at the Kwong Wang and said, "When I told you to give you a weapon when we arrived, do you still remember?" Kwong Wang laughed. "Boss, I think we should forget about it. Just the weapons of this world." He was slightly disdainful. During the battle outside of God's design attic, Powerhouse of God's tribe had taken out all sorts of divine weapons against him, but those so-called holy artifact were simply trash existences. The power that was released was not even able to harm his skin. What else was good in this world? Kwong Wang said, "I'm speaking the truth, the level of this plane is too low. Let alone holy artifacts, even the most powerful weapons are trash in my eyes. Boss, my bare hands are also pretty good." The surrounding people were all shocked by him. The plane's level is too low. Then where did this guy come from? Was Long Fei going to the outer realm this year? Good heavens. The Wild King shocked their hearts. After all, he had already seen Ancient World's powerhouse, but this was the first time he had seen it. Long Fei laughed and said, "Don't be in such a hurry to reject it, take a look first." With a flip of his right hand, he retrieved the Devil's Battle Axe that he just dropped. The moment he took it out, bam! The battle axe instantly fell to the ground. Long Fei was only holding on to something that weighed more than 1,000,000 kilograms. Not to mention using it. The battle axe fell to the ground. In the blink of an eye, the 10,000 devilish flames on the battle axe quickly spread out like a vine. With the battle axe as its center, it quickly spread and densely filled the entire area. Tang Long's eyes darkened. What a dense demonic energy. And then, Long Fei was secretly shocked. Damn, as long as I come into contact with the axe, I will instantly turn into a demon. Even the earth is the same. The ground turned black. The blue stone floor tiles seemed to be burning with demonic flames. It was very terrifying. Kwong Wang was also slightly startled. He took a step forward and said, "Interesting." Long Fei said, "Wild King, using this axe requires you to endure the pain of being devoured by the devouring. If you can't handle it, You will go berserk and get swallowed by this axe. You must be careful. Ha ha ha. Kwong Wang laughed wildly, and did not care about what Long Fei had said at all. He grabbed the handle of the axe. Immediately, all of the devil flame vines retracted, and charged towards the raging king's arms. Roots instantly covered the entire arm of the wild king. His arm turned purplish black, and veins popped out from his arm one after another. It was extremely brutal. It was as if his arm had been possessed. The savage king didn't stop him. Instead, he allowed the devil fire from the battle axe to enter his body. After swallowing his arm, he followed the arm and entered the savage king's chest. It was just like a huge tiger tattoo on a mountain, sinister and terrifying. The black devilish flames were still moving, making it seem even more ferocious. It was just that. What was strange was that when the devil fire reached the wild king's chest, the devil fire could no longer continue. The savage king said faintly, "I won't be able to swallow it, right?" The demonic flame looked as if it was being looked down upon. With a bang sound, the battle axe was covered in flames that were dozens of feet high. The wild king was in the middle, but he still didn't do anything. He stood there calmly. Long Fei watched nervously. If it was him, he probably wouldn't be able to hold it back. "Long Fei, is it dangerous?" Elder Swordsman said softly. Many people were like Elder Swordsman. After all, the demonic flames before his eyes were too terrifying. Long Fei shook his head and said, "Don't worry, he is not an ordinary person. Even the demons of the primordial era wouldn't be able to do anything to him. One of the three great celestial kings of the realm, how could he be immortal?" The corner of the wild king's mouth curled up as he sneered, "Rampage? I like it." As soon as he finished, the savage king's eyes moved, and his 5 fingers clenched into a fist. Bam! To rise from the ground, to sink he charged tens of thousands of meters into the air, wielding the battle axe in one hand and hammering down heavily with the other. Rumble! The sky split open. Countless streaks of black devilish flames spread out, covering half the sky. Savage! The savage king struck again. Rumble! 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 The sky kept splitting apart, but what he smashed was not the sky, but the flames on the hammer. If it was facing the sky, then the sky above God's design attic would have already broken. Anger. Arrogant. You still have the right to be arrogant in front of me. Bang, bang, bang. Vicious and brutal. The flames on the battle axe continuously weakened, before slowly retreating from Kwong Wang's body. Not only that, it even revealed a hint of fear. He was extremely afraid. Boom! A loud explosion resounded. The savage king landed on the ground. At this moment, there was no longer any trace of devil fire on his arm. All of the devil fire had returned to the surface of his battle axe. The savage king disdainfully said, "Are you still being arrogant? Be obedient and listen to me in the future, otherwise I'll turn you into ashes." Such a domineering stroke. Buzz. Suddenly, a sword hum came out from behind the God's design attic. Long Fei didn't have time to ask Kwong Wang how the devil's battle axe was, as his body abruptly turned to look into the distance. Long Fei didn't have time to ask Kwong Wang how the devil's battle axe was, as his body abruptly turned to look into the distance. Elder Swordsman took a step forward, and said, "What a powerful sword cry, this sword." His perception of sword intent surpassed that of everyone present. A single sword hum could tell the quality of this sword. Elder Swordsman's heart trembled. Long Fei secretly thought, did it work? Then, Long Fei's body moved, his 2 wings extended out, and he suddenly soared into the sky. He disappeared in the blink of an eye. Wow! Feather god wings. Murong Xiong was slightly shocked. He looked at the wings on Long Fei's back and asked, "Nephew, where are you going?" Immediately, he then took a step into the space and swiftly caught up. The others followed. Not long later, Long Fei landed at the entrance of the immortal Jade Peak. Senior, was it completed? Sky Sword. Regarding the sword chime from earlier, Long Fei was extremely familiar with it. Back then, if not for the Sky Sword spirit, he would already be dead. Thus, Even if there was no mission, Long Fei had to reforge the Sky Sword. This was his promise to the Sky Sword spirit, and also something that a man had to accomplish. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Laughter came out from the cave door opened, God's design craftsman walked out, his face was pale, holding onto a sword with both hands. The blade was very thin. Every inch was incomparably exquisite. God's design craftsman watched as she walked out of the cave. Buzz. Once again, the sword hummed. The sword floated up and directly flew to Long Fei's side. Long Fei said excitedly, "You still remember me?" The Sky Sword nodded. Long Fei also laughed, and said, "Looks like you really succeeded in reconstructing it." Sky Sword. Long Fei bowed towards God's design craftsman and said, "Thank you." God's design craftsman stroked his beard and laughed, "No need to thank me. If it wasn't for you, I would be the one thanking. If it wasn't for you, God's design attic would have already become a river of blood. Emperor Xian wants to attack God's design attic this time. If it wasn't for you, no one in God's design attic would be able to stop God's tribe, it's just that." The space between his eyebrows tightened. Long Fei naturally knew what he was worried about. Recasting a Sky Sword was a huge favor to him, so he immediately said, "Don't worry, Senior, as long as I am alive, I will protect God's design attic." God's design craftsman said, "These words of yours are enough, I also." While they were talking, cough, cough, cough. God's design craftsman coughed continuously as his face became even paler. Long Fei stepped forward to support the God's design craftsman, and said, "Senior." He had a kind smile on his face as he looked at Long Fei and said, "I need to thank you. If not for you, I would not have been able to shine for even a moment longer at the end of my life. To me, reconstructing a Sky Sword is an enormous honor, even to the extent where I have been waiting for this entire life. Sky Sword, primordial first sword, he is also your father's sword." Long Fei said, "Your body." God's design craftsman had been in closed-door training for more than 10 years. He was not seeking a breakthrough, but to recuperate his own refining force. After the ancient world suffered a heavy setback, his energy had gradually declined, and he was no longer able to refine anymore. Recasting the Sky Sword had used up all of its profound chi. He didn't regret it. He even felt that this was the greatest gift the heavens had given him, as well as a chance they had given him to prove himself. He did it. He thanked Long Fei, and thanked the Sky Sword. God's design craftsman replied, "I'm fine. My mission has been completed, and it is now yours." Long Fei trembled, and asked, "What mission is it?" God's design craftsman's voice was very soft. He was extremely weak right now, and as though he was about to run out of oil, he said, "Sky Sword Spirit told me that your father was imprisoned in Dragon Abyss Dungeon by Long Wushan and is currently suffering from the pain of the dragon-locked chain corroding his bones. He's not going to be able to endure much longer. The Sky Sword Spirit wants you to quickly save him." Cough, cough, cough. While speaking, God's design craftsman made another series of hurried coughs, with blood coming out from the corner of his mouth. The Sky Sword could sense Long Zhanting. Just like how Long Zhanting sensed the presence of Sky Sword. That kind of dragon-locked chain would move every joint of Long Zhanting's body, and the dragon-locked chain would move together with him. The pain was indescribable. No one could bear it. Moreover, the dragon-locked chain grew in Long Zhanting's body and continued to devour him. Long Fei's eyes tensed up, he could imagine the scene before him, his fists clenched involuntarily, and said, "I'll remember it." God's design craftsman said, "This is what the Sword Spirit told me to tell you. Next, I want to say a few words about what I saw in Ancient World. However, in Ancient World, I actually saw Emperor Xian destroying Ancient World's evil seal, and Emperor Xian. He. Cough, cough, cough. I can't say. The feeling he gives me is that he is not human at all." Long Fei was startled. What was that? Emperor Xian was not human. Could it be a beast? Long Fei did not interrupt. The God's design craftsman said, "Emperor Xian is the king of God's tribe. He controls the growth of all the legacies within the ancient world. His cultivation is the strongest in the universal realm, and can be considered to be at the peak of powerhouse. However, he is kneeling in front of an evil seal. Pious. It's completely incomprehensible. Emperor Xian kneeled. Long Fei was shocked in his heart. What kind of person was Emperor Xian? The king of God's tribe, the king of inheritance. This kind of superpowerhouse would kneel like an ant. God's design craftsman said, I don't know why he kneeled down either, but my intuition tells me that there is something even more powerful beneath the seal, and someone even more powerful than him. Before those monsters under the seal, he can only kneel down, so how terrifying is the seal then? At this time, Long Fei thought about the old demon and the black. Black and White had said many times before that they had lost before, failed once, and now it was Long Fei's turn. If they failed once again, then he would be doomed forever, and this world would be doomed to failure no matter what. Was this the most ancient invasion of foreign lands? Are those monsters from the other realms that are beneath the seal of the first dragon? Was the reason why the Emperor Xian could win against the god of underworld was all thanks to the power of the seal? Otherwise, when Ming clan was so powerful, and he was only a weak family, it would have been impossible for them to win. God's design craftsman said as he finished his speech, you have to go to ancient world as soon as possible. If all of those seals are opened, I'm worried. Evil will cover the whole world. Long Fei thought, why does this story seem like an outdated Western fantasy movie? However, Long Fei still nodded and said, Amen, I will go to the ancient world. Nothing else. He had to save his father. But he had one more thing to do before he could save his father. Destroy shrine. After finishing all the instructions, the last bit of God's design craftsman's profound chi was burnt away. His expression slowly stiffened with a faint smile on his face. After finishing all the instructions, the last bit of God's design craftsman's profound chi was burnt away. His expression slowly stiffened with a faint smile on his face. Finally, he sat down cross-legged. Just like the old monk, Yuan Ju. At this moment, everyone else had also caught up, and when Abbot Whitebrow saw that his master had died, he immediately shouted, Master, Sai. The number one refiner in Universal Realm, Murong Xiong walked out of the space and glanced at the God's design craftsman, sighing with some regret. He then looked at the sky and said solemnly, It's all because of this damnable God's tribe. Xiao Fei, what are you going to do next? Long Fei looked at Murong Xiong and said, Are you really my uncle? Murong Xiong immediately said, Of course, is that true? Long Fei said, Then you must know where my mother is, right? He had never forgotten the middle-aged woman that had appeared in his mind. He had never forgotten that everything she had done was to protect him. Even though she had memories of the seal, Long Fei treated her extremely well. He knew that it was his mother, the best person in the world for him. Murong Xiong was stumped by her question, and laughed bitterly. Ever since your mother came back from the low realms, she had only returned once to the Mu clan, and she was a Mu clan at that time. At that time, both the dragon race and the gods tribe wanted to capture her. After coming to the universal realm, your mother suddenly disappeared from the Mu clan. Don't mention me, your grandfather also doesn't know where she is. But there is one thing I can be sure of, your mother is definitely still alive. Murong Xiong said in an extremely convinced manner, every single person in the Mu clan has a type of power. No matter where one goes, they would be connected to the Mu clan in that plane. The connection between the powers in Mu clan is still there, so don't worry, she will definitely still be alive. As long as a person was alive, anything was possible. It was just that. Murong Xiong didn't know what Mu Wana was enduring at all. She didn't know what she sacrificed to protect Long Fei, but the reason why her connection with Mu clan didn't break was because a superpowerhouse at her side was using a divine treasure to protect her. It was only because of this that he was able to survive. Murong Xiong did not know about all these, and other than Mu Wana, no one else knew either. Murong Xiong said, Compared to your mother, I think you should be more concerned about your father. Dragons who left the Long family were immediately betrayed by Long Wushan after they returned to the universal realm and were instantly suppressed by the god's tribe. Your father is in an even worse situation. He was directly imprisoned in the Dragon Abyss dungeon. Do you know what kind of place that is? That place. Even if you want to die, you can't. It hadn't even been half an hour when Dragon Abyss Dungeon was mentioned again. About his father. Long Fei clenched his fists tightly and thought, Long Wushan, Emperor Xian, wait. Sensing the fluctuations of Long Fei's aura, Murong Xiong said, you're in a hurry too, I've asked around, and your father is still alive, it's just a little bit more painful, he won't be dead for a while. However, if you want to save your father, it won't be that easy. You have to first enter the ancient world, but the passage to the ancient world is controlled to death by the gods' tribe, so unless you get permission from the Emperor Xian, you can't enter at all. Without waiting for Murong Xiong to finish, Long Fei said straightforwardly, then let's eliminate the Emperor Xian. Murong Xiong's eyes immediately shook, excitement flashed across them, and he said, do you want to make a move against God's tribe? Ha ha ha. I knew it. I have long disliked God's tribe. He really thinks that he is a god, the ruler of the world. Pa, what does his Emperor Xian count as? His grandma's legs. Xiao Fei, what do you want me to do? Murong Xiong was very excited. He hated that he couldn't immediately rush to the shrine to kill him. Only by trampling all over God's tribe's grandsons did he feel good. Long Fei said, you have arranged for the people of the God's Design Attic to enter the Xiao Yarrow city, and can't force them to do anything for the Xiao Yarrow city, and you can't intervene even if they leave or leave. Murong Xiong immediately replied, no problem. What else? Long Fei said, no more. What? Both of Murong Xiong's eyes widened in shock as he looked at Long Fei with shock and said, to deal with such a huge matter as the God's tribe, don't tell me that as an uncle, I have nothing to do. Long Fei replied simply, no. Murong Xiong asked, do you know what realm I am in? I am at the peak of Universal Realm, and I am at the Sovereign Realm. Furthermore, I can control the magic space spell and I can easily kill the Supreme Elder of God's tribe. Like going to the shrine with you? Ratio for example, killing a few Emperor Xian's direct disciples? Long Fei asked, are you very strong? Murong Xiong said complacently, of course. Long Fei immediately splashed a bucket of cold water on top of it and said, do you have the power of the Rampage King? Murong Xiong was stupefied on the spot. Quang Wang was completely abnormal, the aura on his body that had killed all the presbyter of God's tribe stirred, and directly exploded. Furthermore, the aura that the Quang Wang emitted made him feel like he had strength that could ignore the laws of this world. Murong Xiong grinned, he is a outer space powerhouse, we cannot compare. Long Fei asked, are you as strong as my junior brother? Murong Xiong said, Xiao Fei, we are from the Universal Realm, let's not compare ourselves to them. Long Fei asked, are you as strong as 8 King Kong? Murong Xiong said, about that, I'll go arrange for the people from God's Design Attic to leave. Like a frosted eggplant. He didn't have the slightest bit of spirit. His entire body was battered by Long Fei. Murong Xiong left in a dejected manner. Long Fei looked at him and said, it is very possible that this God's tribe is planning to make a move against Xiao Yarrow city. Uncle, you have to be more careful. Long Fei didn't say it out loud, but in his heart, he admitted it. Moreover, he had already felt it when Murong Xiong first sent someone to protect him in space, and he was very grateful in his heart. Hearing Long Fei call out the 2 words uncle, Murong Xiong was so happy that he didn't want it anymore. He said, don't worry, although your uncle can't compare to those people you mentioned just now, I'll kill one of those scum from the God's tribe. Long Fei said in a cold voice, God's tribe has many ancient strong s. Murong Xiong rolled his eyes, revealing an expression, I don't want to talk to you. Mad King and young Taoist walked over. Xiao Bai and the others also walked forward, but they did not approach Long Fei. They knew that since Long Fei was going to attack God's tribe, they wouldn't be able to help him in any way. Long Fei looked at them and said, wait for my return at Xiao Yarrow city. Looking at them all, Long Fei turned around and said, let's go. He didn't want to stay any longer. He was afraid that he wouldn't be willing to. In another place. In a forbidden forest in Universal Realm. Boom. With a loud crack, a stream of energy shot out from the mountain and covered everything within a radius of 10,000 miles. Buzz. The purple mist suddenly retracted and returned to the body of a man. The man was very young. He was quite handsome. The violet fog coiled around him like battle chi. He opened his eyes slightly and let out a whooshing sound. Done. Hee hee. Even without the system, I am still very powerful. Shrine, God's tribe. Shrine, God's tribe. In the great hall, all the great elders were gathered. Completely wiped out. Impossible. Could it be that third young master is too weak? Long family really doesn't know his place. After allowing him to escape with luck several times, he still wants to fight with us God's tribe. Does he think that he has lived for too long? God's design attic should have long been eliminated. And that Xiao Yarrow city, what the hell is he? After making him bounce around for so many years, it's about time to take his dog life. God's tribe, when did you ever get bullied like this? If Emperor Xian comes back and sees this, he'll definitely not let us off. We have to get back at him. Inside the hall, the various elders were discussing amongst themselves. Even though they were all wiped out, they were not afraid of it. Fear, these two words had never existed in God's tribe before. Suddenly, the frontmost old man stood up, his hands slightly pressed down, and said lightly, "The reason we are gathered here today is to solve all the problems before Emperor Xian returns. What are your suggestions?" The audience slowly quieted down. An elder said, "Great clan elder, we must eliminate Long Fei, this dog, otherwise how do you think of our God's tribe? As for how to get rid of him, it's very simple. The dragon ancestors of the Wash Sky Pool are the best bait. I do not believe that he will not appear after hanging the 13th dragon ancestor at the entrance of the shrine. Within the God's tribe palace, there were 13 dragon ancestral saints. These dragon ancestral beings were all people that had fought together with Long Fei before, and all of them were released by Long Fei after he destroyed the seal. Their relationship with Long Fei was very deep, and using them as bait was extremely good." An elder said slightly, "The 13th dragon ancestor were suppressing the Wash Sky Pool. Although they were suppressed by us, they are still members of the dragon race. If they were to be released by us, would the dragon race have anything to say? What does it mean to hang up? Just like a dried-up corpse, hanging by the entrance of shrine like a flag. What did this mean to the dragons? Humiliation. The greatest humiliation. Originally, being suppressed at the Wash Sky Pool was already hard for the dragon race to accept. If they were to hang the 13th dragon ancestor on the surface again, it would undoubtedly be an even greater humiliation. At the same time, the moment the 13th dragon ancestor's life was about to be taken away, it would also be rapidly lost. Dragon clan? It's nothing. The elder disdainfully said, "A family that acts as our watchdog, so what if we have something to say? Suppressing the dragon race is as easy as suppressing a dog. As for Long Wushan, hee. This old dog of his is even more useless than I've ever seen him. Let's say one, how dare he say two? If the dragon race didn't have someone as useless as him, they wouldn't have become like this. Of course. It would be better for us to have someone like him." The elder's eyes didn't even contain the dragon's gaze. The clan took it seriously. All these years, the dragon race had been firmly trampled by the God's tribe. Let alone moving, they didn't even dare to say a single word. Long Wushan would pay tribute to the God's tribe every year. Every year, he would kneel in front of Emperor Xian. The dragon race did not kneel on the ground or bow to the heavens. However, as for him, in order to preserve his life, he had done everything. The great clan elder said indifferently, "You are right, the dragon race is not a threat to us. At most, they would bark a few times like dogs, but if they dared to jump out, Emperor Xian would slap them back to their original forms. This bait plan works. Now that the bait has been thrown, how do we set up the inescapable net?" The clan elder laughed. "That is even simpler. As long as he dares to come to shrine, do you think he will be able to leave alive? Blind arrogance." However, God's tribe did indeed have this ability. An elder said, "The power of shrine is comparable to any powerhouse, and also, shrine himself is an ancient holy artifact. If he comes, he will die. Any one of our God's tribes is an inescapable net." The great elder said, "I like to crush people. I can unleash as much power as I want. Since I can kill him in one move, I will not use the second move. Therefore, I still need to set up the inescapable net. One of the clan elders lowered his voice and said, Great clan elder, doesn't our shrine still have a group of ancient worlds? They have a deep grudge against the dragon clan. As long as Long Fei dares to appear, they will immediately kill him. Do you think that the kid from the inescapable net can escape? Everyone's eyes widened. Many people snickered. These few years, Emperor Xian had continuously brought Ancient Strong out of the ancient world. The first thing these Ancient Strong did when they appeared in the universal realm was to look for people with the surname Long, surname Tang, and the last name Ming. It could be said that all of these people with the 3 surnames universal realm had been killed by them. If they knew that Long Fei was the reincarnation of the first dragon, then, even without God's tribe saying anything, they would have already rushed out. At that time, they wouldn't even need to make a move. These ancient worlds were all powerful existences that brought along lightning, and even if there were experts at Long Fei's side, they would still be unable to resist it. The first elder's eyes narrowed slightly. He smiled slightly and said, This plan. That elder said, Great clan elder, you can rest assured. At that time, they will definitely be happy to kill that brat Long Fei. I am afraid that Long Fei is too weak and cannot be killed by them. Heh! Ha ha ha! Ha ha ha! Ha ha ha! All the elders in the hall burst into laughter. He smiled complacently. Half a moment. The great elder replied, Emperor Xian is not here. Before leaving, he gave me the authority to carry out my orders. Now, follow my orders. Hualala. All the elders stood up with serious expressions. The great clan elder said, Hang the 13 dragons of the Wash Sky Pool out of the entrance of the shrine and spread the word. Within 10 days, if Long Fei doesn't dare to appear, we will kill one of the 13th dragon ancestor. Yes. The gods' tribe will not tolerate anyone who goes against them to still be alive and well. He wanted to completely control the universal realm. He wouldn't give anyone any chance. Long Fei could not do it either. This time, he wanted to take a look at the powers of the universal realm that were unwilling to be ruled, and see the consequences of going against the gods' tribe. Long Fei left the gods' design attic with young Taoist and Quang Wang, and didn't immediately go to the shrine. He still had some things to do. North Desert Domain. Millions of kilometers of desert, sandstorms raged madly, and there were more than one of them. There were huge independent sandstorms in all directions. At the center of them was a flat area. The dragon sword descended and said, Master, it's here. The land of the North Desert Domain's seal. In every corner of the primordial 9 regions, the dragon clan's ancestor had set down the seal. Below the seal was the evil demon that invaded from another realm. Long Fei came here for the dragon sword, and also for the demon's underground. His level. The level was a hard wound. The level was a hard wound. It was also his advantage. However, his level was too low, so once the body of Tauti gathered all of his rage points, his body would become empty for a moment, which was also a type of gap. If he had been attacked at that time, Long Fei's warrior realm could have easily crushed him with a finger. The reason why he did not absorb the power of the ancient artifact forging powerhouse in God's design attic was because he was not interested in the rank of that ancient strong. It was also because of the power released by the young Taoist and the raging king that caused his heart to secretly tremble. What if he could take the level of a outer space powerhouse? What would happen then? Ancient strong is awesome. Kill not your 18 generations of ancestors. Either he didn't do it, or he would do it to the point where he had to achieve the unshakable realm of Superman. Long Fei looked at the enormous flat ground. Young Taoist said indifferently, There is a hole down here. Quang Wang looked at Long Fei and said, Are you going down? Long Fei nodded and said, En. With that, Quang Wang raised his sleeves, opened his right hand, and the devil's battle axe appeared out of thin air. Its black-colored flames ignited, and with a grasp of its hands, it chopped down at the gigantic seal. Rumble. 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 The power of the explosion shook the heaven and earth. However, the seal did not move at all. However, The sandstorms of the sandstorms in all directions were shaken into nothingness by his power, and the surroundings also quieted down. Heh! This seal can actually withstand one of my attacks. F***CK. That depends on how many times you can make me take an attack. In that instant, veins popped out on Kwong Wang's forehead. This time, the energy ripple on his body extended out slowly like a small whirlpool, and at the same time, he moved. With both hands, he grabbed the devil's battle-axe and fiercely waved it. Boom! With a nearly 360-degree swing, he unleashed his strength to its maximum. It fell down heavily. Buzz! The shockwave blew up the sand and dust, and from the center of the flatland, it swirled up like a storm. The sand and dust were blown up to a height of 10 jong, crazily exploding outwards. If the sandstorm from Tornado City was powerful, then this sandstorm that was produced by the powerful explosion was the destruction of the world. The whole desert was sinking. Billions of tons of sand were swept up and the entire North Desert domain was shaken, the shock rate covering the entire domain. Strength. Terrifying. It was hard to imagine. However, the seal was still motionless. Moreover, the sand was blown out, the seal was spotless, and the jet-black stones were like fine steel, shining with an ice-cold light under the scorching sun. There was no heat here. Instead, it was somewhat cold. It was very strange. Young Taoist laughed. Kwong Wang, your strength doesn't seem to be enough. Kwong Wang expressed his displeasure, and said, I don't believe that I will be stopped by this small seal. With that, he threw the devil's battle-axe to the side, and with a wave of his sleeve, he threw such a big fist that was as big as a claypot towards the seal. Young Taoist said, let me do it. Kwong Wang retracted his fist and said, good, good, good. Then you do it, I'll see what tricks you can come up with. TSK. He is the outer space powerhouse. One of the 3 great heavenly kings of the underworld. But now, he had lost his temper because of a seal. Let alone the power of the seal, even the sky above Universal Realm was split open by him. However, this seal did not have the slightest scar. Then how strong was the seal? Young Taoist walked forward and said to Seal, this is a gigantic piece of land filled with sealess. Do you see the many seal runes on there? If you don't destroy these runes, no matter how much power you have, it will be useless. So, first, destroy these symbols. Then, the seal will naturally be broken. The young Taoist giggled and then sat in mid-air. Buzz. Golden runes appeared on his body. The golden runes flew out one by one, landing on the seal runes on the platform like butterflies resting. There were a total of 108 seals. It floated there quietly. The Wild King grinned and said, the second half of the immortal Taoist scriptures? Fuck, you must be cheating. The Savage King had a look of contempt on his face. Young Taoist giggled as he looked at Long Fei. Long Fei laughed and said, you can do whatever you want, no need to worry about me. Receiving Long Fei's permission, young Taoist's forehead tightened, and suddenly shouted out one word, explode. In an instant, 108 runes exploded at the same time. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. Crazy means exploding. As if a thunderbolt from the highest part of the 9th heaven had directly struck it, the power of the immortal Taoist scriptures was extremely terrifying. Even the young Taoist had a complacent look on his face. If the seal's rune is destroyed, then the seal is naturally broken. However, as the dust settled, the runes on the seal did not disappear, and strangely, there was not even a trace of damage. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Kwong Wang was laughing so hard that he seemed to have gone mad as he looked at young Taoist and said, you can't do it either, ha ha ha. Immortal Taoist scriptures also have times when they are not effective. Ha ha ha. Young Taoist's face was full of doubt, and said, that's impossible, it can't be like this, there's something strange about this seal. Young Taoist did not understand. The Wild King taunted, why are you being so weird, it's just that your immortal Taoist scriptures is too weak. You should just step aside and let me do it. Young Taoist said, I will try again, just now I only used a layer of power, this time I will use a total of 10 layers, I do not believe I will not be able to break a single seal. The Savage King said, I'll do it, You can't, young Taoist said, you're the one who can't. The two of them argued non-stop. Long Fei really could not watch any longer, and said, sigh. All of you can leave, but let me do it. They stopped. Long Fei walked forward step by step, and said, even though you all are powerhouse from another realm, even though you all can easily crush powerhouse from this plane, even though you all are very, very strong and very cool, however, there are some things that you still can't do, young Taoist said. Senior brother, your cultivation is too low. You won't be able to break this seal. Kwong Wang also said, destroying anything is related to one's cultivation. I can't do it, and you definitely can't do it either. The two of them did not believe in Long Fei either. Long Fei secretly smiled and walked to the center of the seal. With a flick of his finger, a drop of blood essence floated up. Long Fei's body lightly trembled, and he muttered in his heart, damn, is releasing blood essence a side effect? The drop of blood essence landed on the ground. Drip. The moment he landed on the ground, the seal released a halo of light. Next. Catcher, Hualala. It was like a giant machine operating under the seal. Boom, boom, boom. A staircase that led underground appeared on the flat surface of the seal platform, and the rumbling slowly spread far away before disappearing. The seal was released. The cold was pressing. Long Fei glanced at young Taoist and Kwong Wang, both of them extremely confused. You two can even do that? Long Fei laughed, and said, let's go down to take a look. Long Fei was at the very front. Without waiting for Long Fei to continue walking, the dragon sword flew in first and Long Fei did not stop it. Long Fei was at the very front. Without waiting for Long Fei to continue walking, the dragon sword flew in first and Long Fei did not stop it. Young Taoist and Kwong Wang were still a bit confused, and only caught up to Long Fei in a hurry when he had disappeared. Seems like there are powers in this world that I don't understand. There are limits to every kind of power. Whether it's seal or erase, as long as I can break through the limits of power, that is the destruction of everything, but it's clear that my power couldn't have done that just now. Is the seal very strong? Use 10 times, 100 times more power to destroy it. Can bear it. There was a limit to the power, and it surpassed the limit by a great margin, thus breaking the rules of its power. Although Kwong Wang did not use his full strength just now, it was clear that he was unable to defeat the seal. The young Taoist said, you are right, the world that we live in is different from the world we live in. The world that we live in is only a sub-world, and above it is a stronger mother world. It's not that we don't have an original world, it's just that we haven't found one. Who knows, maybe we were separated from each other by some mother world. I reckon we'll have to wait for Boss to finish the Eternal Lord's trial before we can find our mother world. There were different dimensions, levels, and places. The 3,000 planes below the Hall of Eternal Life was only a very, very small world compared to the immortal world. Long Fei turned around and glanced at them, and said, don't speak. Young Taoist and Kwong Wang instantly quieted down. In the darkness, the bone-chilling cold air continued to surge, as if it was deep in an Arctic glacier. One must know that there was a scorching hot desert above. Why was this place so cold? Creak, creak, creak. An ear-piercing sound rang out. Young Taoist asked, Senior brother, what is that sound? The Wild King's eyebrows tightened and he opened his right hand. Holding the devil's battle-axe in his hand, he became cautious. Long Fei listened carefully, and said, it seems to be the sound of ice quickly solidifying. Young Taoist said, frost? With such an ear-piercing sound, how low is the temperature below? It was like the sound of glass being broken. If it was frost, the temperature would be too terrifying. As long as they walked over, they would be frozen. The Savage King asked, what exactly is below? Young Taoist asked, Senior brother, what are you doing here? What are you looking for? Long Fei did not explain any further, saying, wait till you see something, do not be in a hurry to make a move. Listen to my orders. Young Taoist nodded, and said, okay. Kwong Wang smiled slightly and said, I want to see what the hell is under the seal that even I can't break through, and see if I can take a beating from it. While they were talking, Kwong Wang took a step forward, walking in front of Long Fei. If it was really as Long Fei had said, and the creaking and ear-piercing sound was the sound of condensed ice, then it would not be an ordinary dangerous matter. He did not want anything to happen to the future Eternal Lord before he completed his experimental learning. He still wanted Long Fei to help him find the Hall of Eternal Life's mother world, so he wanted to pursue an even higher realm of martial arts training. The Mad King's gate was wide open as he casually walked deeper in. Young Taoist walked beside Long Fei. Long Fei walked in the middle. He kept going down, and the deeper he went, the colder the air became. His eyebrows were frozen into ice crystals and his face was pale. The screeching sound of the freezing ice became even louder. As if walking on ice, the ice constantly cracked. Kwong Wang slowed down and said, "Boss, I'm a bit scared. I feel like we're not walking on stairs, but rather a thin layer of ice. If I'm not careful, I might fall into the hole in the ice. I'm not afraid of anything else, but if I meet water." Young Taoist secretly laughed and said, "Wild King, are you a landlubber?" The Savage King's face sank. He wanted to retort, but he was unable to do so. He was afraid of water. He was very scared. The young Taoist smiled even brighter and said, "Don't worry, if you fall down, I will save you." Crack. Before he could finish his sentence, Kwong Wang's step missed and one of his feet directly sank into the ground. Immediately, the Savage King's face turned pale and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. His right leg wanted to use the force to soar into the sky, but another catcher sound was heard. His right foot also sunk in. The Savage King's eyebrows tightened, F***CK. With a loud shout, the devil's battle-axe in his hand fiercely hacked down. Long Fei shouted loudly. He wanted to stop them, but he realized it was already too late. The axe hacked down. Hualala! Hualala! The layer of ice quickly ruptured, and half of Long Fei's body sank, followed closely by the young Taoist. And in this ice cellar, both his speed and reaction speed became sluggish, as if they were frozen. Half of the Savage King's body directly sunk into the ground. His face went pale. His body trembled. It could be seen that he was very afraid of water. How could outer space powerhouse, one of the three great heavenly kings of the hidden realm, be afraid of water? It was hard to imagine. When they killed the powerhouse S, who would believe that the Savage King was actually afraid of water and was even trembling in fear? Kwong Wang turned to look at young Taoist, who was beside Long Fei. The young Taoist looked at him and knew that the Wild King was afraid of water. "Don't be anxious, don't move recklessly. You have yet to sink down, the more you struggle, the faster you will sink." Kwong Wang's heart was unable to calm down. He wanted to shout loudly, but if he really were to do this, he would definitely be laughed at by the young Taoist for 10 years, but he endured it. Long Fei said, "First, pull him up, I'm fine here." The idea moved, wanting to summon the dragon sword back. However, Long Fei was unable to sense the existence of the dragon sword. Young Taoist carefully walked to the side of the Kwong Wang. Seeing his embarrassed look, he couldn't help but let out a poochie sound and started laughing out loud. "I didn't expect you to be so afraid of water." Kwong Wang rolled his eyes at young Taoist and said, "This matter can never be let out to Dark Goddess." "Did you hear it clearly?" Young Taoist replied, "So what if I know? She's my woman, not yours." The Savage King said, "You dare say you're your woman here, why don't you say so in front of her?" Young Taoist said, "Oh, you dare talk back, do you want me to save you?" Long Fei saw that the situation was not right and said, "You too, stop messing around." Just as Long Fei finished speaking, suddenly, Kwong Wang's pupils suddenly constricted as he shouted, "Ah! There's something below." At this moment, the Savage King's body was suddenly dragged down and instantly disappeared into the ground. In a moment of desperation, the young Taoist did not care so much as he went directly down the Kwong Wang's hole. It was also at this time. Catcher, catcher. The layer of ice healed, and there were steps to another floor. It was as if young Taoist and Raging King had never appeared before, and at this time, in the darkness, rays of white light that were the color of Shen crystal sparkled. It was a sword. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.